Reborn in India as a Magnate. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326, The Shocking Gamble, Complete Madness. This must be a little joke God played on everyone, but this joke is so real that they suffered heavy losses. This is the US dollar of money. Those who come to the casino to gamble all choose to believe that luck brings them actual benefits and makes their families richer. They all enter the Monte Carlo casino with good wishes, but when they leave, their pockets are cleaner than their faces. How can you play like this? How can you play like this? God is not at home today. Does the Indian Lord Shiva rule the entire universe? Why is this Indian so weird? He bet right twice in a row, and the leopard size is all taken. Not to mention that these gamblers are not calm. Even the general manager of the Monte Carlo casino, who is sitting in the monitor and watching the entire casino, feels his scalp tingling. After the casino's expert group appraisal, Belsinger has no suspicion of cheating. In the final analysis, it is because this Indian's luck is too good. The judgment ability is really excellent. You can't find any fault at all. Where can you check it? Do you want to force a gambler who has invested tens of millions of dollars to gamble out of the Monte Carlo casino? In that case, is there any need for your casino to survive? Is your casino a black shop? Don't allow people to win money. If this reputation spreads, one of the 4 largest gambling cities in the world will completely become one of the 3 largest gambling cities. Monaco's casino will completely become the laughingstock of the casino industry. Who will gamble here in the future? It's simply a black shop that rips people off. Although the casino also has to pay more than $2 million, it can only pinch its nose and admit it. Who let him wear his underwear outside to be Superman? Who let him rule the entire universe today? Your god is resting now and is not in the service area. You can only make psychological comfort based on these irrelevant speculations. What else can you do? After the silence, there is the noise of the vegetable market. Wow, some gamblers with poor psychological quality intolerance have started to go crazy. Some laughed, some sat on the ground and cried like a child. There were all kinds of reactions, and there were quite a few who had a complete mental breakdown. These people will be quickly cleared out of the scene by the casino security. They are all mentally ill. If they stayed at the scene and it affected this amazing gambling game, who would bear such losses? Is there any need for Monte Carlo casino to exist in this world? Those big men who peed while standing had a mental breakdown, but unexpectedly, the blonde beauty sitting next to Belsinger was unusually calm. The 3 leopards had made her faint once before, and this time her psychological endurance was obviously increased. She calmly drank the red wine in the glass. Although her hands were still shaking a little, her calm expression was 100 sets better than those men. The comparison between the 2 really showed a clear gap. Regardless of other people's reactions, the dealers and staff were busy. All the crystal chips on the gambling table were piled in front of Belsinger. The good guy was like a crystal mountain, shining in front of the eyes, and the reflective crystals made people unable to open their eyes. And the blonde beauty sitting next to Belsinger also placed more than a dozen such crystal chips in front of her. In other words, the beauty's $200,000 immediately doubled to more than $600,000. Now more than $600,000 is already the level of a wealthy family in Europe. It was enough for this beauty and her single son to live well on their own land, and it was more than enough to buy a small castle. Is there any difficulty in life? Is it necessary to sell your body? Will it bring shame to your young son? Who has money will sell their body. This is the opportunity to change their fate. Seize the opportunity to completely change their fate. This is what the blonde beauty did tonight. Of course, all this was brought by the very young Indian fat man next to her. The blonde beauty should really thank Belsinger. Without Belsinger, the beauty's future life for herself and her son can be said to be dark. It was Belsinger who brought the change. So many big men have mental breakdowns. What about that Japanese? It can still be regarded as the true nature of a young master from a noble family. Although he was sitting there sweating profusely, his hand holding the wine glass was shaking, and half of the whiskey in the glass was spilled. but he still looked very calm, just because he didn't get angry because of his face. In fact, he was already exhausted inside. He was scared. He was too scared. Who wouldn't be scared when facing a godlike opponent? The atmosphere on the scene can be said to be extremely depressing. Those who were happy were mostly disappointed and collapsed. Negative emotions filled the entire casino space. More than 70 people were forcibly cleared out. No more than 50 people were left on the scene. These were all mentally strong, did not collapse, and still had some chips in their hands. As Belsina's opponent, although the eldest son of Mitsu did not collapse on the spot, he was really too afraid of this smiling little fat man. The opponent seemed to have endless magic power and could actually choose two leopards, and both won. God is standing in front of his opponent today. What else can you do? But the big talk just now has been said. Whoever does not lose all the chips on the table is not allowed to leave. Although he doesn't want to face the fifth gambling game, what can you do? If he doesn't want to face it, you can't leave until you lose all the chips of $5 million US. If you leave, the reputation of the entire Mitsu family will be ruined, including the Yamato nation of Japan. They will lose face in front of the Europeans. Losing some money is not a big deal, but their national personality is insulted, which is what every Japanese does not want to see. To be honest, it is not easy for the Japanese to rise from an island country. Without a strong character and national characteristics, can they come out of a barren island country? Although it is bad, it is admirable. But this time is already a life and death moment. The characteristics of the Japanese are revealed. That is, they choose to go all out and die with the other party. That is, drag Belsina to hell together. When the scene was completely cleaned up, the Japanese trembled and put down the wine glass in his hand and turned his head stiffly, looking at Belsina on the side. This time he did not smile, but he did not grit his teeth, but asked calmly, "Mr. Singer, we are wasting time. It happens that I have 5 million and you have more than 10 million. How about we have a direct confrontation? In other words, one hand determines the winner. I wonder if Mr. Singer is interested in participating. I want to go home and accompany my 3 wives when I have time. How can I waste time with you, a big man? Since you want to have a head-on confrontation, it is exactly what I want to do." Belsina also wants to end the battle as soon as possible, then celebrate this year's harvest with his family members. Monte Carlo is his blessed land. Tomorrow he wants to take his 3 wives to visit the scenery of Monaco. He should go back to sleep and rest early, otherwise he will not have the energy. He laughed and slapped the table and stood up, pointing his finger at the Japanese's nose, and said with a smile, "Master Mitsu, since you want to play big, I will accompany you to the end, and let's decide the winner in one go." Chapter 327, Harvest Night. Wonderful night. As soon as these words came out, the whole casino exploded again with a bang. Everyone began to discuss who was following whom to eat melon cakes. To be honest, some people were completely disappointed with the Japanese. Everyone used to win money by following Belsina. Choosing who to follow behind the Japanese meant winning first and losing later. After such a long period of contact, everyone chose to agree that the Japanese were running out of time and were no match for this Indian. Some gamblers still had some rationality left, and everyone chose to follow the voice in their hearts. So they started to line up, and the number of people behind Belsina began to increase again. Although the behavior of these gamblers was despicable, who could resist the temptation of money? Belsina didn't care, just glanced at everyone with a smile, but saw some more in the familiar crowd. The figures of the Singh family servants. Everyone smiled and waved to their own masters. Everyone had already known that their master had made such a big noise in the 3rd floor dance hall. After being called by the human mule Brook, everyone gathered together. When they arrived on the 3rd floor, they saw their master, who actually won a lot of money by buying the lucky number of 3 leopards. Because they didn't understand the situation, everyone didn't choose to act blindly, but observed first. When their master bought the 5-point leopard, a rule that only appears in 1,000th, the servants of the Singh family were excited and began to rummage through their pockets. Whether they lost or won, they had some chips, and then they chose who to follow behind their master. They followed without hesitation at the number their master bought. They were all their own people and loyal servants who followed their family. the authentic and legitimate members of the Singh family, their own direct lineage, of course, hoped that they would win more money. In order to improve the living conditions of their families, it also saved them a lot of trouble and money. So Bell Singh secretly smiled and said to Lina beside him, "It is better to share happiness with others than to enjoy it alone. Our family members are here, and of course the more we win, the better. I will buy time for you to gather the women in your family and distribute the chips to the servants so that they can win a lot and have a wonderful night." Lina certainly agreed with this proposal with both hands and feet, and nodded with a smile, and stood up silently. The main purpose of Belsina's conversation with the Japanese was to buy time, so that Lina could quickly collect chips and give them to the servants, so that they could win a lot. "If I, the master, eat meat, my servants must drink meat soup, otherwise what is the point of me, the master? Is it necessary for me to be this master?" Belsina is really too bad, so bad that he not only wants to win money, but also wants his servants to win money. He is really too proud. To be honest, the servants working under Belsina live a carefree life, which is really happy. Others are envious, but Belsina is such a protective character, and he doesn't mind anything to his own people. If outsiders want to bully his people, then Belsina, the old man, will lead the entire family to collectively resist and fight to the death with the other party. This is why there has been no traitor in the Singer family for hundreds of years. Such a good family and such a good master, who would betray, would be a fool. For Belsina to be so attentive for no reason, that is either a traitor or a thief. The Japanese are very clear-headed. Of course, they know that there is something fishy behind Belsina, but he can't figure out where the fishy thing is. What exactly does Belsina, the damn fat guy, want to do? He doesn't know, but as time goes by, the Japanese feel more and more wrong, because every time they gamble, Bell's character never chooses to delay time, and this time the delay must be fishy. But the Japanese calculated all the possibilities, and couldn't guess the real reason why Belsina delayed time. Belsina could only go on, chatting with Belsina in a casual manner, and he was so nervous that he almost had a myocardial infarction. The two gambling masters chatted with each other here, and their fake smiles puzzled the gamblers around. Everyone couldn't figure out what was going on. Belsina, the Indian, was obviously targeting the Japanese. Why are they talking again now? They chatted with a smile like old friends who hadn't seen each other for many years. There must be something fishy. The answer was soon revealed. Just as the dealer urged both parties to place bets, Lina quietly returned to her seat. She gently pulled Belsina's sleeve with her little hand, and the couple looked at each other, and everything was self-evident. And the family servants behind Belsina were all very excited, drooling and fiddling with the chips in their hands that had doubled. Everything was ready, only the east wind was waiting. Then the shocking gambling game. Belsina took the initiative this time, and placed all the chips in his hand on the 3-6 leopards. This time he chose to bet on the leopard. He won once and twice. Could he win the leopard for the third time? There has never been such a weird thing in the history of gambling. But Belsina won the first 2 times. Could it be that he was too excited to bet wrong this time? But seeing Belsina's relaxed look, it didn't seem like he had made a mistake. At this time, everyone began to think about whether to follow or not. In the end, 2/3 of the people chose to follow whoever bet on the leopard behind Belsina, and the leopard was 6 points. The other 1/3 of the people still chose whoever bet on the Japanese in the small area. The polarization was particularly serious. After the bet was placed, the dealer began to wipe his sweat and fiddle with the dice. To be honest, the pressure on the dealer to complete the shocking gambling was also very high. Now the casino has lost more than $5 million. If he continues to lose, let alone the bonus, he may not be able to pay the year-end bonus. This is related to everyone's direct income. It's good enough if he can stop shaking. The dice started to spin rumblingly. After a few seconds, everyone heard the dice fall to the ground, and everyone's heart suddenly rose to their throat. To be honest, facing the red-eyed gazes of dozens of people, it takes a strong mentality to be able to calmly open the cover on the dice. When the cover was opened, the whole scene fell into a sea of joy, and there were all kinds of sounds of people falling to the ground. The Japanese man had slumped in his chair with a dull look in his eyes, mumbling to himself, as if he had been stimulated by something too much, and had become stupid. The dealer who opened 3 6-point leopards felt his hands trembling and suspected that his career was over. The casino would never use his own again. He opened 3 leopards in a row. How bad was his hand to be able to make such a weird gamble? This gamble that took an hour and a half was finally completed and ended with Belsina's final victory. Those who won money behind Belsina began to calculate how much they had earned besides paying taxes. The blonde beauty who had always chosen to follow Belsina had won more than $750,000 in cash. After deducting the tax of up to 40%, there will be a net income of nearly $500,000 left, which can completely change the living conditions of the entire family. Chapter 328, Mariah Potts Invitation. He won, and won completely. He won cleanly. He slaughtered the Japanese pig, bled it, and then chopped it into pieces for roasting. Belsina's mouth began to ooze as he ate the fat and tender pork. He didn't expect that Monaco in Europe would be his blessed land. He hadn't sold the huge gold artwork in his hand yet, but he had already won more than $25 million in cash. That's right, after deducting all taxes, Belsina won $25 million. It was more than 4 times the total cash reserves of the Singer family a few hours ago. It's not an exaggeration to describe it as getting rich overnight. Not only is it not an exaggeration, but it also implicitly expresses the scale of the money won this time. Belsina's luck is really outrageous. He won 3 leopards in a row. How could such a weird thing happen to Belsina in the world? What else can't he do? Who else? Belsina even wanted to stand on the Eiffel Tower and shout to the world. Who else? Who dares to gamble with him? There is no gambling saint in the world. If there is one, Belsina deserves it. If you object, you can also bet 3 leopards in a row. The 3rd floor of the entire casino fell into a sea of joy. Although the gamblers who were behind Belsina had betrayed him before, they later realized their mistakes and won a few tens of thousands of dollars in total, which was considered a small fortune. Not losing too much made everyone the happiest. Fortunately, they corrected the chaos in time and finally won. The scene fell into a sea of joy. A few minutes later, the manager of the casino came to the scene with the accounting staff and settled the bills for all the gamblers on the spot. Then he solemnly handed over the $25 million deposit in bank card to Belsina, and Belsina handed the bank card to his wife Lina. Men are responsible for the outside and women are responsible for the inside. This is the rule of the Singer family. Finally, through negotiation, Belsina collected the 3 ivory sieves that produced 3 leopards in a row at a cost of $30,000. The huge benefits brought by these 3 dice to himself really make people feel like a mascot. Besides Belsina, the one who won the most money was the blonde beauty, who won a net income of more than $500,000. The 3rd and 4th place were all members of the Belsina family, and each of them won tens of thousands of dollars in pocket money. Everyone was happy. As for how the loser, the Japanese, walked out of the 3rd floor casino in Monaco, it was unknown. With the glorious image of the winner in front, who would choose to pay attention to the loser? After 40 minutes of lively and bustling, these scattered gamblers were cleared out by the casino. Belsina was just about to take his family back to the luxury cruise ship. He celebrated it, but he didn't expect to meet the blonde beauty at the door of the casino. The other party took the initiative to shake hands with Belsina, and then he stuttered to introduce his name in poor English. This blonde beauty, named Mariah Bates, is French. But why do French people have blonde hair and blue eyes? That's because this beauty has more than 3/4 of her bloodline of pure German descent, and only her grandmother is Italian, and can communicate proficiently in German and French. The beauty stopped Belsina not because she wanted to throw herself into his arms, but because she wanted to invite Belsina and his wife to her home tomorrow morning. The single mother wanted to thank Belsina for bringing about a huge change in her life. If it weren't for Belsina, she would still be a prostitute who would catch rich men and sell her body to raise a young son. Belle's character changed the fate of the mother and mother, so it was not too much to thank Belsina. At least she should invite Belsina to have a meal. Belsina briefly understood the mental journey of this single mother and admired her tenacious character and fearless spirit. She gladly accepted Mariah Bates' invitation and would bring her 3 wives to Mariah Bates' house in France tomorrow morning. After the 2 sides happily agreed on the meeting place and time, they parted ways. Belle Senior took the family back to the luxury cruise ship in a Rolls-Royce car specially sent by the casino, and then spent $100,000 to book the entire luxury cruise ship's restaurant, specially serving the Singer family. The chefs brought by the Singer family and the chefs of the restaurant were mixed together, and then seafood products were selected as the protagonist of today's dinner. After all, Monaco is close to the sea, and the Mediterranean is also a holy place where seafood is abundant. There are many special seafoods that taste quite good and are very nutritious. If you don't eat seafood when you come to the beach, what can you eat? All the good wine and good things are served. Then Belle Singer and his family began to eat and drink, celebrate, and tossed until 3 o'clock in the morning. Only then did he lie on the bed and sleep for a while. When Belle Singer was sleeping in a daze, he felt someone pushing him. Looking back, he saw that it was Lina, who was already dressed, and said to Belle Singer with a smile, "Singer, we accepted Mariah Bates' invitation yesterday, and now it's 8:30 in the morning. It's time for 9 o'clock. Shouldn't we get up?" To be honest, Belle Singer was exhausted from the high tension yesterday, but Belle's personality would not refuse the date he had agreed to. This is about his own credibility. Although very reluctant, he still yawned and sat up from the bed in a daze. He stumbled to the bathroom and took a warm bath. Only then did he come to the restaurant with renewed energy and had a simple breakfast. Then he took the 3 ladies who were already dressed and very beautiful and took a taxi around the winding mountain road and came to France. The place where I dated Mariah Bates was a small village in France near the border of Monaco. The name of the village was very distinctive and was called Otsburg. Hundreds of years ago, Otsburg was also a small principality parallel to Monaco. Of course, there was no way to resist the annexation of Napoleon the Great to France, and now it has become an integral part of the French territory. Although the small village is small, it has a long history. Many ancient buildings were left hundreds of years ago. The population of the village does not exceed 3,000. It is at the entrance of a valley. The valley behind is the farmland and vineyards of the villagers in the village. The scenery is beautiful and poetic. In addition, it is close to the prosperous Monaco, and its economic strength should not be underestimated. Life in the small village is very leisurely. It is already 9 o'clock in the morning, but I still don't see many people busy. At the entrance of the village, Mariah Bates came to greet them, and she held her little son's hand. The little guy was just 3 years old and was still learning to speak. When he spoke, he had air leakage due to his teeth, and his tongue was hard to understand. But the blonde and blue-eyed handsome boy immediately aroused the curiosity of all the women, as if they had obtained a precious toy. All the women's attention was focused on the little guy, leaving Belle Singer aside. Belle Singer couldn't be jealous of a 3-year-old baby, so he just talked and laughed with Mariah Bates while walking towards her home. While admiring the ancient buildings around, he turned several corners and saw a single-story farmhouse in front of him. This was where Mariah Bates and her son lived, and it was also the only property left to Mariah Bates by his parents. Chapter 329. Delicious red wine chicken. Although it is a farmyard, the main building has a history of 200 years. The main building of the house is all made of stones. Cement, which was very luxurious at that time, was poured into the middle. There will be 2 courtyards in the future. The front yard is planted with some flowers and plants, and there is a wooden garage next to it. If you follow the general thinking, you will definitely think that France is Europe, so even if it is a farmyard, there is no wall. Such conservative buildings should be open. But everyone is wrong. Europe was not peaceful at that time. There were many countries, big and small, and wars broke out every moment. Even in such a remote seaside village in France, it is impossible to escape, so every household has a stone wall as a defense facility. Moreover, the windows of the main building are very small, only no more than 50 centimeters wide, and there is a slope facing outward on both sides. If you stand by the window and use a long gun for defense, you can complete 180-degree shooting without dead angles. Entering the farmyard feels fresh and beautiful, very beautiful, just like a very classic small garden that is well maintained. There are all kinds of plastic toys on the neatly trimmed lawn. This is the favorite playground of Mariah's youngest son. In addition, the weather is beautiful today. It can be said that there are no clouds in the sky, the air is fresh and the temperature is suitable. Seeing the guests sitting on the chairs in the front yard, Mariah began to busy herself and prepare black tea and cakes for the guests. Everyone sat together, enjoying the Mediterranean sunshine and talking and laughing. Of course, Mariah's very poor English made it very difficult for everyone to listen, but they could communicate normally. After enjoying more than half an hour of morning tea, Mariah brought the Belsina family to visit the house and looked at almost every bedroom and even the basement. Generally speaking, the house in Mariah's house is not bad, but the furniture is already the product of the 1930s. It looks very old, more or less some old furniture with some economic value, but the furnishings in the house are also very tight. It seems that the life of the mother and son before cannot be said to be difficult, but it is far from good. After visiting the house, we came to the backyard. The backyard was very large, with half an acre of dark land, which was neatly planned and planted with some vegetables. At the farthest point, there was even an area for chickens to live, with more than a dozen chickens of different sizes living in it. These chickens were led by 2 roosters, and the eggs they produced were the only source of nutrition for the mother and the child. The backyard was very neatly planned and could be completely self-sufficient. Of course, food could not be produced, but vegetables and fruits were not lacking. After visiting the entire house, Mariah invited all the guests to sit in the living room inside the house. While watching TV, she let her son play with the Belsina family, and she came to the kitchen to prepare lunch. Originally, the women wanted to help, but Mariah refused sternly. In Mariah's words, "When you come to a French home as a guest, how can you let the guests stretch out their hands?" The host insisted so much that the guests should follow the host's wishes. In addition, Mariah's son is so cute. The little guy is learning the language and has a very cheerful and lively personality. They can chat with everyone. The women chatted and played with them as if they had a favorite toy, while Belsina fell asleep on the sofa. I don't know when Belsina was woken up. He opened his eyes and saw that the sun was already high. He just wanted to stretch his body, but his sensitive nose smelled a strange fragrance. He opened his eyes confusedly and sniffed around. Only then did he realize that the source of the fragrance was in the kitchen. Belsina loved food very much. It can be said that he couldn't walk at all when he saw delicious food. I don't know what classic food Mariah made. The fragrance was so attractive. He stood up with a yawn and came to the door of the kitchen. Seeing Mariah busy cooking inside, he asked with a smile, "Mariah, what did you make that smells so good? I also smell a faint smell of wine and chicken. It's so attractive." Mariah looked back at Belsina's sleepy look and said with a smile, "Mr. Singh must have been too excited last night and didn't get enough rest. He's still groggy, but my nose is still sharp. Yes, I made red wine chicken, the most classic French country dish. I hope you like it." Red wine chicken. France is the origin of wine and also the holy land of wine. There are more than 100 wine estates that can name top brands. What's more, those top-notch wineries are also located in France. Wine can be said to be deeply rooted in the blood of the French people. The French can live without bread for a day, but they can't live without wine for a day. However, for those luxury goods produced by famous wineries, the French sneer at them, thinking that they are luxury things, not wines for the public to enjoy. Therefore, the French people will choose those low and medium end table wines, and every household has their favorite wine produced by the winery. Every spring when the wine matures, they will bring their families to the only wine estate that they like, even the one that has been in their family for hundreds of years, to buy wine. They buy several large barrels and hundreds of liters at a time, and then store them in the cellar at home. Red wine is like blood, and it is indispensable for a moment, so the raw materials of many French delicacies are based on red wine or brandy. The red wine chicken made by Mariah this time is a very classic French country dish. Although it is a farm dish, the taste is absolutely first class, and the rich fragrance is really attractive. It seems that I have a good time today. While cooking, Mariah told the curious Belsina about the history of red wine chicken. I didn't expect that this red wine chicken could be traced back to 300 years ago. Back then, it was a French court dish and was loved by the nobles. Although the main raw material is wine produced in France, the red wine chicken made in other countries does not have this local taste. That's because another raw material of red wine chicken is not the reed chicken produced in France. That is, the dozen authentic French reed chickens raised in Mariah's backyard are the main sole raw materials. How can it be called red wine chicken without chicken? More than half an hour later, lunch was finally ready, and Mariah asked the young and strong Belsina to help move the table to the idyllic backyard. Then they put out the food and poured wine. Several people sat at the table and ate and chatted. A red wine chicken leg almost made Belsina swallow his tongue. During the meal, the Belsinas briefly understood the situation between Mariah and her son. Mariah is a single mother. She was a rebellious teenager since she was a child. She followed a famous local rock youth. The two of them ignored their parents' opposition and finally got together. However, this rock youth was a bohemian character after all. Mariah chose to abandon him after having enough fun. Unexpectedly, Mariah was already pregnant at the time. The stubborn little girl insisted on giving birth to her son despite her parents' opposition. Due to the difficult life of the mother and son and the old age of their parents died 2 years ago. Mariah was left with her young son living in this village, and her life was extremely difficult. Chapter 330, Delicious Red Wine Chicken. Young girls are blind to love. They will choose to grow up after being hurt. She grew up to be a strong single mother. She lived a simple life with her young son in the house, left by her parents. Her life was very difficult. In addition, Mariah did not have any higher education. Although she was young and beautiful, she had no life and work experience. So she ran into obstacles everywhere and suffered a lot of injuries. In the end, she had no choice but to turn her attention to the Monaco casino. Because it is close to Monaco, there are many gamblers and there are also wealthy people who spend a lot of money. If she is lucky, Mariah will accompany these wealthy people with her excellent figure and delicate face. Have a tour in Monaco. Only by selling her body to get some money can she improve her family's life and let her young son grow up healthily with the care of a nanny. Although it makes people feel the atmosphere, Mariah is still a strong mother. She did not give up her son even in such difficulties. This is very touching. When it comes to the sad part, Mariah also lies on the table and cries. The sensible little one would come to his mother's arms, wipe her tears and cry with her. After crying for a while, Mariah looked at the stunt singer family members embarrassedly, wiped her tears, and said with a smile, "Fortunately, I met Mr. Singer yesterday, just like receiving God's will. There is always a voice in my heart, that is, following Mr. Singer will definitely change my life, so I exchanged all my money for chips, and fortunately I bet right." At this time, Belsinger was very curious about Mariah, curious about what kind of changes should be made after Mariah got more than $500,000 in cash. If this woman invests recklessly, the money will definitely go down the drain. This strong mother should be given some pertinent advice to help him and his children live a good life. Belsinger put forward his ideas, and Mariah said shyly, "Don't worry, Mr. Belsinger. I won't choose to invest recklessly because I don't understand those financial matters. I want to use the money to expand the house left by my parents and renovate it to make a family hotel. After all, we are only 5 kilometers away from Monaco. It will definitely attract many tourists with its superior environment, plus the only property my mother left me. That is the red wine chicken we ate, which will definitely become the signature dish of my little home. Doing this can take care of my children, and secondly, I can have a stable income, and I won't be criticized for throwing away my money. So I want to run a family hotel. Do you have any suggestions for this? Please give me some good suggestions to help me. The idea of this family hotel is very good. As society becomes more and more developed, the number of tourists will increase. Monaco is originally a pocket country. How many people can it accommodate? The rich can live in the luxurious hotels in Monaco. Where should those tourists who have no money go? It is only 5 kilometers away from Monaco, and it is a pastoral scenery that is very quiet and comfortable. Those tourists with little money will definitely choose to live in this small village, and Mariah has a classic red wine chicken recipe. It is guaranteed to become the signature dish of Xiaolu's restaurant, or even the signature dish. It will definitely attract those travelers who don't have much money. Although it is very hard to open a family hotel, the income is stable and not bad, which can fully meet the living needs of the mother and son. This suggestion is really great. Belsina agreed with both hands. Based on his own experience, he also made many constructive suggestions to Mariah, and let Mariah adopt them one by one. If this family hotel is well managed, an annual income of $100,000 is not a problem, which can fully meet the needs of raising a child. By then, this blonde and blue-eyed little guy will definitely grow up, go to college in a superior environment, grow up to be a very good young man, and then take care of his mother Mariah. But it is very difficult for a single mother to support a family hotel. Even if the family hotel is opened, a huge amount of money is invested in the early stage, but the income is negligible, and it is good to be able to maintain it. Mariah and her son, who have spent all the money in their hands, will definitely fall into trouble again. After all, business is built up slowly, and fame is also gradually spread. It is impossible to open a family hotel and fill it up immediately. So Belsina frowned and said, Ms. Mariah, I suggest you divide the funds in your hand into 3 parts. One part is $100,000, which can be stored in the bank to earn interest. After all, the bank interest rate is relatively high now, and the income is relatively stable. It can be used as a last resort to hide it. The second part is also $100,000, which can be invested in the stock market to buy some well-known French brand stocks. Then you will definitely not see any big returns in the 3 to 5 years of storing it in the stock market. But after 10 years, I guarantee that $100,000 will become $1 million. For the remaining $300,000, don't choose to blindly decorate your family hotel luxuriously. Family hotels enjoy the warmth and the pastoral scenery. If you decorate it into a high-end hotel, no one will stay there, and the original characteristics of the family hotel will be lost. So keeping the original style is the most important thing. I calculated it for you. The overall decoration will not cost $150,000. You can buy some better belongings with the remaining money. After all, although opening a family hotel enjoys the most primitive pastoral scenery, no one will choose to be separated from the real society. Televisions and computers are necessary, plus furniture and beds, which are not investments, so this family hotel is not that easy to run. Mariah readily accepted all the suggestions made by Belsina, because what Belsina said was so right. A family hotel must have the characteristics of a family hotel. If it is not a 5-star hotel, and has no characteristics, no one will stay in this small and narrow family hotel. This lunch was extremely happy and the chat was very enjoyable. Belsina was like a great general, helped Mariah to point out the way forward and plan for the future, and for the opinions put forward by Belsina, they were also respected, as if they were imperial edicts. 5 years later, when Belsina brought his family back to Mariah's family hotel, he saw the mother and son who lived a rich life. The family hotel was full every day. Red wine chicken became an indispensable signature dish. The price of each serving of red wine chicken was actually sold for hundreds of dollars. At that time, Mariah and her son's bank savings had exceeded the standard of a wealthy woman of $3 million. At that time, the little guy had grown up to be a primary school student, and he actually remembered Uncle Belsina and Aunt Lena, 2 Indians. When the two sides met, the little guy was not shy at all, and he had a lot of fun playing with Belsina's children. Belsina felt very happy to be able to change the living conditions of Mariah and her son. He felt psychologically comforted, as if he had done a good deed. Chapter 331, Women's Sudden Thoughts. As lunch progressed, everyone was talking more and more happily, and Mariah was looking forward to her future life. Her personality also became particularly cheerful, and everyone was talking and laughing together, which was very lively. But as time went by, everyone had to say goodbye and leave, because the luxury cruise ship was about to set sail at 5 p.m. Crossing the Strait of Gibraltar, and then heading north to the home port of the United Kingdom. Even if Belsina had not stayed in Monaco enough, he had to follow the luxury cruise ship to continue sailing, otherwise the money would not be wasted. Although he won a lot of money in this gambling, Belsina's stingy character still played an extreme role. After tasting a delicious red wine chicken, Belsina simply fell in love with this taste. However, the method of making red wine chicken is not complicated, and anyone who knows a little cooking can easily handle it, but the main ingredient of red wine chicken is the French Louher chicken, which is not easy to get. Because the French Louher chicken is a local breed in the south of the local area, it is not big in size, and even an adult male rooster will never weigh more than 3 kilograms. However, the number of this kind of Louher chicken is very rare. There are only some free-range Louher chickens in local mountainous areas or villages, which cannot be supplied in large quantities. If you want to eat this most authentic French red wine chicken again, you can only come to France to taste it. But Belcina does not regret it. What can't you buy with money? When Belcina left, he had already discussed with Mariah. Mariah would provide the Singh family with 3 slaughtered French Louher chickens every month. Then they were frozen and transported by air to Mumbai, India, or the capital Delhi, and then someone from the Singh family would take the 3 frozen chickens back. Paired with the famous red wine produced by the 8 major wineries in France, it must be much more delicious than those common goods. After all, red wine is also one of the indispensable ingredients for red wine chicken. After all, everyone is a friend who has only met once, and Belcina can't let Mariah suffer a loss, so each chicken is purchased at a price of $50. It is very troublesome, both by plain and frozen, but Belcina is willing to pay any price to taste the food. This is the power of foodies. There is no way. Who makes Belcina love to eat? Loving food is better than cherishing your body. If you keep eating like this, you can't say when diabetes will come, but Belcina doesn't care. It is human nature to taste delicious food. How can you kill this nature? There are many reasons. Anyway, he is fat. Belcina discussed it with Mariah before leaving. When he got in the car, he was still laughed at by several women. In Lina's words, Belcina can pay any price to taste delicious food. Although he was laughed at by several women, Belcina was thick-skinned and didn't care. The family sat in the car comfortably and drove along the country road. At this time, Lina sighed, which made Belcina frown. Thinking that Lina was uncomfortable, he looked at Lina very nervously and asked anxiously, while touching her head to see if she had a fever. "Baby, what's wrong? Why are you sighing for no reason? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Do you have a fever or a cold?" Seeing Belcina so nervous, Lina didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After knocking off the big hand that was rubbing against her forehead, she rolled her eyes and said angrily, "Don't you want to be nice to me? Why do you think I'm sick when I have a problem? Do you like me to be sick? This is nonsense. Caring is not caring, nor is it what you want me to do. Why is being a man so hard? Especially a pregnant woman. If she argues with you, it will never end." Belcina has already experienced such pain. He just smiled and kept silent to prevent Lina from transferring all her firepower to himself, which would make life difficult. Seeing that Belcina was honest, Lina sighed and said, "I sighed because I envy Mariah's rural life. Although the air in our Laga Valley is fresh and beautiful, India is too hot." Lina was right. India is too hot. Because of the Himalayas, the hot air from the sea hovers over the Indian continental plate for a long time. Even in the cool rainy season, the temperature will be above 31 degrees, and it will be damp everywhere. There will be a big rain every 3 days, a small rain every 2 days, and drizzle every day. But the dry season should be better, but it is wrong. It is even hotter in the dry season, and the temperature is above 30 degrees. Even the local Indians will sweat after walking a few steps. That is why the noble masters of the upper castes in India will change into several sets of ironed clean clothes every day, because the smell of sweat is really unbearable. Fortunately, Belcina's home is in the Laga Valley, which is deep in the mountains, and the environment is unbelievably good. There are mountains, water, forests, wild animals everywhere, and no industrial pollution. Otherwise, living in a big city is unbearable, with garbage and flies everywhere. To be honest, Belcina also likes the leisurely rural life in France, but his own industry and roots are in India, in the town of Sinjar. Without India, this high-caste master is nothing. Who will respect himself? How can I enjoy the privileged life that India brings to me now? This kind of privileged life makes people particularly fascinated. After all, status determines everything. Only with a level gap can one show the preciousness and respectability of one's status. Just like the nobles in the past, I really fell in love with this unscrupulous life. If I come to France, To live in the countryside. Who will recognize me as a noble master? Who can respect myself? So Belsina frowned and smiled bitterly. I also like this carefree rural life. The sun is bright and the air is fresh. You see how cool it is. But it's not possible. Our family's roots are in India, in the town of Sinjar. Without India, what is our family? Lena understood the reasons given by Belle's character, but understanding is one thing, and refutation is another. Seeing Belsina's hesitation, she said very dissatisfiedly, I think you are just obsessed with the sense of superiority brought to you by the upper caste. What's good about India? You know what kind of situation India is. Besides, I like this kind of life, and I can't leave India for too long. It can be used as a holiday home. If we get bored, we can come to France, to live for a while. Isn't it good? Talking to these women is never reasonable. In the end, you still get into trouble. It's all your fault. So Belsina chose to shut up, but Lena didn't let him go, and still said angrily, it's the end of the rainy season, but it rains every day. Don't you know that everything you touch is wet? It's like being in a sauna every day. Do you like this kind of life? I don't want my son to enjoy this kind of sauna weather when he is born. Chapter 332, Women's Sudden Thoughts Part 2. Belsina and Lena were so annoyed that they had no choice but to sigh and say, what do you think we should do? Should we really buy a property in France? Come here to live for a month or so every year? There is nothing wrong with doing so, and it can be regarded as a vacation. But Lena, don't forget that home is home. Lena saw that her husband Belle had compromised his character, like a female general who had won a battle, and raised her chin proudly. With a pout, she looked at Belsina with contempt and said, of course I know the concept of home, not to mention that my family is in Sinjar town. How can I choose to leave for a long time? Vacations of course require a short time, and home is the harbor where life lasts the longest. You don't need to remind me of this. I know very well what the concept of home is. What could Belsina say? He could only laugh shamelessly. Who is my wife? That's Mrs. Lena. A good wife is the backbone of the entire family and can hold up half the sky. Lena was very pleased with this set of flattery and said to Natasha, who was sitting in the co-pilot seat with a smile, Natasha, don't you want to express your opinion? I saw that you carefully observed Mariah's house. I guess you also like this quiet country life. Natasha carefully observed Belsina's reaction in the rearview mirror and saw that her man didn't care about this statement. Then she boldly said the most real thoughts in her mind, and the latter nodded and said, Sister Lena is right. I also like the local weather very much. Look at the clear sky, and not so humid. It's not cold or hot, and it's close to the seaside. There is a prosperous Monaco. It must be very convenient to live here. You can get whatever you want. Lena looked at Belsina proudly, as if she had received strong support, and said provocatively with her eyes, look, this is what everyone thinks. Not only do I think so, but even Natasha thinks so. Praji, do you like it very much? Sister Mariah's house? Do you like the weather here? As she said this, she touched the little fat girl sitting between the two with her hand with a smile. What does the little fat girl know? Now she is determined to grow up, to be the woman of Belle's brother, and doesn't care about anything else. But this time, the little fat girl actually betrayed the man in her mind, and nodded in agreement and said naively, I like it here. I don't like India, because it rains every day and it's very hot. It's dirty and messy everywhere. My classmate got malaria a few days ago. I don't know what the disease is. Anyway, he vomited and had diarrhea, which made the whole school very nervous. The little girl is now studying in the primary school in the town. Every day, she is taken back to Singh Castle by car. A while ago, there were floods, famines, and mosquitoes. Fortunately, the leaders of the town are still conscientious and put an end to the epidemic of malaria in time. But even so, more than 300 people were infected. Most of them were children with strong resistance and very poor living environment, so the whole school was under martial law. This gave Prajaya a great shock, and once again let the little girl see what it means that human power is inferior to God's will. Fortunately, the Singh family took strict precautions and no one was infected, so they survived this malaria crisis. Although the little girl is not an adult and her mind is not sound, she knows some scientific knowledge. She knows that there are fewer mosquitoes in cold and cool places. Is this reason sufficient? India's sanitation conditions, whether in rural or urban areas, have always been criticized. Garbage is rampant and sewage is flowing everywhere. Coupled with the warm climate, mosquitoes breed very quickly. From time to time, we hear that an epidemic has broken out in a certain area, either malaria or other viruses. In this subtropical environment, if you want to eliminate all mosquitoes, it is simply a fantasy. Mosquitoes are millions of times more than humans. How can such a large number be eliminated? A cup of water can allow a mosquito to reproduce hundreds of next generations. How can you prevent and control water everywhere in India? Just like they use flood control, it is better to dredge than to block. The Singh family has the strength and economic foundation to purchase industries outside. Then family members can come here for a few months for vacation. There is no problem. Money is not a problem, so what else is a problem? No. So several women chirped and expressed their opinions. They unified their caliber, and it depends on what Belle Singh decides. In fact, Belle also likes the seaside weather in France, and he can also taste the classic French food at any time. Belle Singh just can't let go of the Singh family's industry and base in India. Men always think about things more realistically than women. But this doesn't prevent his family from buying a holiday villa, so Belle Singh is also very tempted. After carefully considering the pros and cons, he nodded and agreed to Lina's suggestion to buy a holiday villa. But things have priorities. It's not time yet. Now is the time to sell those gold artworks in exchange for a lot of cash. There is no time to buy a house or look at a house, and there is no time to complete the plan. But it doesn't prevent everyone from imagining the future house, right? The short 5-kilometer journey only takes a few minutes, and everyone chirps and sets the idea of buying a holiday villa. Then he took a good walk in the city of Monaco and tasted the local dinner. Monaco is one of the most developed countries in the world. Although there are few people and small land, all the luxury brands in the world have branches here. As long as you have money here, there is nothing you can't buy. In addition, he had won a lot of money from the Japanese in the past 2 days. With money in his pocket, he was not worried. The women could shop however they wanted. Belle Singh became a card swiping machine and a slave to carry bags. Fortunately, there were so many bodyguards following him, otherwise Belle Singh would be exhausted. The combat effectiveness of a woman shopping is equivalent to that of 3 strong men. The combat effectiveness of 3 beauties, big and small, is equivalent to that of a standard reinforcement class. It would be strange if Belle Singh, who weighs more than 200 kilograms, could bear it. Fortunately, the luxury cruise ship would leave the port at night, so he returned to the cabin on the cruise ship in the afternoon. The women began to sort out their spoils, while Belle Singh turned his attention to the internet. He searched for a lot of house sale information in European countries, and then made a check. He didn't want too expensive or too cheap. He didn't want too small or too big. All the properties that met Belle Singh's fantasy requirements for the manor were listed, and then printed out, and bound into books. Now the Singh family is no longer the Indian tycoons that they always claimed to be. If they sell even 1/3 of the gold artworks in their hands, the assets in Belle Singh's hands are also hundreds of millions of dollars. The standard holiday estates purchased by wealthy people are of course impossible to end in a hurry. Belle Singh set an elimination mechanism for the holiday estates he bought. For example, less than $50 million. The area must be more than 50 acres. If you can buy an ancient castle from 100 years ago, it would be even better. If you can't buy it, it will be enough to buy a vast country estate. The geographical locations of these properties have been selected, that is, in France, Switzerland, and Germany. Chapter 333, moving into the Leicester Hotel. After selecting all the holiday estates he had chosen, Belle Singh was relieved and put the information in his carry-on bag. It was not the time to take it out yet. If the other women knew that he had selected the holiday estates, they would be very crazy. Even Lina had a hot temper. If she saw this booklet, she might change her itinerary and go to Switzerland immediately. When he was selling these gold artworks in the UK, he would be alone. Who would accompany him? So he hid it quickly. The luxury cruise ship sailed very smoothly on the Mediterranean. It had safely crossed the Strait of Gibraltar in the early morning and docked in Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, at 8 o'clock in the morning. The stay time was 6 hours, which allowed the tourists on the ship to appreciate Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, which was the world's hegemony hundreds of years ago. At that time, the Portuguese and the Dutch were the first and second maritime powers to rise in Europe, followed by Spain and France. Finally, it was the British Empire that laid the foundation for the world hegemony, the British Empire. However, after eliminating generation after generation of top powers, it has now become a second-rate country in Europe, which is really a pity. However, the architecture of Lisbon is very unique, and it can be seen that the glory of the Portuguese Empire in the past, and the 2 world wars in Europe, did not affect Portugal. Therefore, all the ancient buildings are presented to tourists intact, because they only stayed for a short 6 hours to have a lunch, and appreciate the morning life of Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. The time is short but enough. After a brief visit to Lisbon's unique classic buildings, they returned to the luxury cruise ship, and continued to sail. At this time, Belcina had received information about the cargo ship that arrived in Plymouth 2 days in advance. Almasha, an important member of the family who had just been promoted, did not disappoint him. The containers that he had high hopes for were safely transported to the port, and then transported to the city center of Plymouth by truck. It has been parked in a very secret warehouse that has been rented for a long time, waiting for himself to arrive at the port and take the next step. This is about more than $1 billion of gold artworks. You have to be careful. If there is a little news, there will be no talk. The Singh family will fall into endless darkness. I repeatedly told Almasha to take members of the Singh family and take good care of these treasures for me. Don't attract attention. Then in Plymouth, a presidential suite was customized for the century-old Lister Hotel. I will move in with my family in 2 days. Speaking of this Lister Hotel, it may not be so well known in the world, but in Plymouth, a century-old British naval port, can a hotel that has stood for more than 150 years be simple? It was the naval club of the British Empire's invincible fleet. It is the most famous hotel in the area, rated 3 stars by Michelin. Coupled with the strong naval background, this hotel is unique. Until now, many generals of the British Navy will come to the Lister Hotel to spend time with the naval soldiers every year on important holidays. Such a classic hotel security work must be quite in place, so staying in such a 3-star hotel is the most needed accommodation for Belcina. After drifting on the sea for another 2 days, Belcina finally arrived at the home port of Plymouth on a luxury cruise ship. Singh and several women in his family walked down the ladder to the dock with light luggage and got on the Rolls-Royce rented by Almasha from the car company and drove into the city. As for the luggage, it was all taken care of by the human mule Brooke, who would return to the hotel to meet Belcina in an hour. The driver was a British man who was very talkative. In addition, India had been ruled by the British for hundreds of years, and the British also had a very good impression of Indians. So he talked endlessly to the Bell family about the famous ancient buildings and memorial signs they encountered on the road. Plymouth alone is enough to visit for half a month. You can imagine how long the history of the whole UK is. If you want to travel around the whole UK, you can't do it without asking you for 1 or 2 years, but Belcina doesn't have such a long tour plan. He just listened to the driver's explanation roughly, and then expressed a strong interest, which made the driver feel very happy, and felt that this Indian respected him. A few minutes later, he stopped at the lobby of the Lister Hotel, and paid the talkative driver a tip of £50. Belcina and his family checked into this 3-star hotel with a history of more than 150 years, and lived in the only presidential suite of the Lister Hotel. This presidential suite is on the top floor of the hotel, including an indoor private garden, kitchen, and living room, with a total of more than 20 rooms. There are 16 toilets alone. Belcina and his family will of course live in the master bedroom, and the remaining secondary bedrooms are all allocated to servants who come to the UK. This room will be Belcina's base in the UK, so the room deposit has been deposited for a month. Of course, the housekeeping matters of the base in the UK will be left to women. Belcina took Almasha to the small conference room in the private room quietly, and the two sat down. Belcina asked in detail about the insurance of the warehouse, where Almasha sat down and prepared to check it out in person in the afternoon. The two talked for more than an hour, and then, at Lina's urging, they walked out of the conference room to help several women decorate the room. Open all the luggage that has been in place and hang the clothes on them. In fact, these are what maids should do, but the people Belsinger brought to the UK are all gentlemen. The underwear of the women in the house cannot be touched by the male servants, so Belsinger, the male owner, can only trouble himself. Under the command of the 3 women, he was busy all over the place and was tired and sweaty. It took more than 2 hours to tidy up the room. After taking a shower, he took the whole family to the restaurant to finish the meal. To be honest, it was not dinner time in the restaurant yet. Only the people brought by Bell had dinner. It was a little deserted, but it was enough to be calm, so that no one would notice him. It was still early after dinner. After arranging the women back to the room, Belsinger took a few trusted men. After taking a taxi with Almasha and going around the city twice, he found the warehouse, where the treasure was hidden at the edge of the city center. Although the warehouse is not large, the living facilities are very complete, with 7 or 8 rooms for people to live in. It looked ordinary, but the security facilities were very complete. The rent was not cheap, more than £400 per day. At that time, the pound and the dollar were really valuable. £400 was quite expensive, but it was worth the money. Safety was the first priority. When Belsinger entered the warehouse, he saw the family's male servants opening the container and cleaning the packaged gold artworks inside. These gold artworks were also divided into different grades, and some were for sale and some were not for sale. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 334, Secret Meeting with West, Part 1. Although these gold artworks are wrapped in thick waste newspapers and filled with plastic foam, they are afraid that these gold artworks will collide with each other in the wooden boxes. Although these wooden boxes are clean, there are some signs on them. Only members of the Singh family know which boxes are for sale, and those boxes will not be sold. The number of gold artworks for sale accounts for 2/3. These gold artworks are not small, but the large size does not mean that these gold artworks have a high collection value. It does not mean that these gold artworks have sufficient gold content, just like the 2 elephants and lions that Belsinger gave to Axe. Are they big? They weigh half a ton, but their gold content is very low. The artistic value is not high either, and the total value is not as high as a pure gold gem wine glass. Size does not mean everything. The remaining 1/3 of the gold artworks are top level collections with great collection value. Each one is not much worse than the gold gem peacock that he gave to Axe. They are even better in appearance and more valuable for collection. The total number of such gold artworks does not exceed 1,500. The total weight is less than 3 tons, but each piece is priceless and needs to be insured at a Swiss bank. Then all the gold ornaments are stored in it. To be honest, the price of each piece of gold art is more than hundreds of thousands of dollars. These are the last resort for the Singh family to survive. Singh will not use these gold artworks unless it is absolutely necessary. The items for sale will be put aside intact, and all the boxes of the gold artworks for sale will be opened. Put the gold artworks one by one in the warehouse, on the shelves that have been neatly arranged. Then take out the instructions that have been authenticated by famous Indian antique experts and hang them on these gold artworks. Even those who don't understand the value of these gold artworks can see at a glance that these gold artworks are genuine. They also know what the valuation they give is, and when they were cast. For these labels, Belsinger paid millions of dollars and hired more than 10 antique authentication experts from all over India to get it done. After sorting these out, all the wooden boxes that are not for sale, that are mixed in the wooden boxes on the right side of the gold for sale are selected. Then, it was stuffed intact into a rusty, inconspicuous container, and then resealed and put aside. Seeing that the family's male servants were all sweaty and panting, Belsinger smiled and said to Almasha beside him, "Everyone has worked so hard today, so dinner must be good. You also know that British cuisine is not very good. So go to a better French restaurant, bring back all the good things, such as foie gras and steak, and give each person a bottle of wine produced by a famous French winery, so that everyone can have a good meal." Amid the cheers of the servants, Belsina came with two trusted men to Elmisha's room in the warehouse. After sitting down and drinking a cup of black tea, Belsina frowned and said to the human mule Brooke beside him, "Has Brooke contacted the general manager of Sotheby's and Christie's auction houses? Who will he meet tomorrow?" The human mule took out his own leather bag and opened it, and took out a black notebook, and rummaged through it. As the saying goes, a good memory is not as good as a good pen. The members of the Singer family all have the habit of recording things. Everyone has a notebook, find what they want to find, and Brooke smiled, and said to his master, "Master, the person you will meet tomorrow is the general manager of Sotheby's auction house, named West. Because the information we sent to Sotheby's auction house is so attractive, General Manager West is personally responsible for negotiating with you on this matter. Can nonsense not attract the general manager of a large institution like Sotheby's auction house? Has the other party seen a few treasures? Can you attract the other party without some real things?" Everyone thought that, even if these gold artworks were sent to Sotheby's auction house, they would only be entrusted and auctioned at the time. Then Sotheby's auction house would collect part of the commission as a fee. In fact, everyone thought wrongly. Ordinary people are so out of control. But the number of gold artworks brought by Belsinger was too large to form a series, enough to set up several special auctions. Even Sotheby's, the world's largest and most well-known auction house, can't eat all the gold artworks in Belsinger's hands. Sotheby's auction house doesn't have such a big appetite, and can only join hands with Christie's to eat Singh's things. In order to win over Belsing, an Indian who has a large number of gold treasures in his hands, Sotheby's and Christie's can be said to have mobilized elite troops to serve Belsing. The two auction houses are rivals of each other, and they also know each other's details. They also know that Bell has contacted the two auction houses, and the two auction houses are competing with each other. This time, West, the general manager of Sotheby's auction house, personally went to Belsing to negotiate as the general manager, and you can see how big the trick is. In order to eat Belsing, a big customer, Sotheby's auction house can be said to have used all its elites and excellent conditions, so that Belsing is embarrassed to refuse the other party's kindness. Tomorrow, I will secretly meet with West, the general manager of Sotheby's, and the day after tomorrow, I will secretly meet with Christie's general manager. Then give them their own preferential conditions, inadvertently reveal them to the other party, and strive for the best conditions. Only in this way can the greatest benefit be obtained. Only with competition can the pigeon family obtain the greatest space for benefits. This is necessary. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. After hearing the accurate answer of the human mule, Belsina smiled and said to Elmisha beside him, "If things go well, then tomorrow afternoon Sotheby's will bring trucks and movers, and then you will personally supervise the registration of all the golden artworks that have been sold at Sotheby's." Elmisha, of course, knew the seriousness of the matter, and said with a pat on his chest like Bell, "Master, don't worry, there won't be any mistakes. If there are mistakes, you can pull my head off and kick it like a bull." Belsina smiled and asked Elmisha to calm down. He was about to smoke a cigarette. At this time, Brooke, the human LUO, took out a lighter with a smirk and lit a cigarette for Belsina himself. Then he frowned and asked, "Master, the prices marked on our batch of gold artworks are not low. We spent so much money. We spent so much effort to find antique experts. Is the estimated price given by them the final price of these gold artworks? If so, we will make a fortune." Belsina sneered at the human mule Brooke and said, "What are you thinking, kid? That is the estimated price given by Indian experts, the price in India. Can it be compared with the price paid by those rich people in Britain and Europe? A 30% premium is not too much." Chapter 335, Secret Meeting with West Part 2. A 30% premium. For example, the price of a common gold wine glass, the price changed by Indian experts. It is worth more than $30,000. If it is 30% premium, it will be $40,000. The income of these things together will be more than $100 million in net profit. The two core subordinates of the Singh family looked at each other and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. The family is rich, and their good days are just around the corner. Will Master Singh, with his generous character, treat his subordinates badly? Seeing the two subordinates so excited, Bell felt a headache. Now many things have not been formulated. Why are you two so happy? There is no need to be serious with these ignorant subordinates. Tomorrow, it depends on how much profit you can get from Sotheby's auction house. These two happy people can't help at all. It would be great if the old butler was here. At the very least, Jamal is much smarter than these two fools. But the two guys who usually call themselves the four kings of the Singh family servants are quite complacent. I don't know what these two guys are thinking. Their abilities are far from those of the grandfather and grandson, but it's better to have something than nothing. What's more, they are loyal to the Singer family and will never betray them. Seeing that 1/3 of the warehouse has been sorted out, Belsina knows that it is useless to stay, so it is better to go back and study the strategy. How to deal with West, the general manager of Sotheby's, so he said goodbye to Elmisha and then repeatedly told her to pay attention to her safety at night. He took a car back to the hotel with the human mule Brooke and accompanied his family to sleep well at night, and the next morning, Belsina, dressed neatly, said goodbye to the three women who were going to go shopping. Then he took a car to the warehouse alone with two bodyguards. Brooke, the human flesh, had already arrived at the cafe where he had an appointment with West and waited. After the two sides met, West knew that Brooke, the human flesh, was just a servant, but he also gave him due respect. The two chatted and laughed as they drove around the city for several laps before arriving at the warehouse. West came into the warehouse alone with his briefcase and then saw Belsing, who was smiling and welcoming them. The British had ruled India for hundreds of years, so didn't they know the caste system that India was famous for? They knew it and understood it very well. Of course, they knew how much influence Belsing had in India. He was a standard aristocrat, so even though he was the general manager of Sotheby's auction house, he should still respect Belsing. Moreover, this Bell had brought a large number of priceless gold artworks to Sotheby's auction house, which would bring huge profits to Sotheby's auction house. The customer is God, and this God is a nobleman, so of course he can't be careless. Belsing was quite pleased with West's respect. After the greetings, Belsing invited the other party to come to the office. After sitting down, West took out a red folder from his briefcase with a smile. Inside was the agreement between Sotheby's and the Singer family that had already been drafted. There were 3 other copies of the agreement in his bag. It would depend on how far Belsina would negotiate the deal and what kind of tactics he would use to force out the other contracts. With 4 contracts prepared, it was clear that the saying no businessman is dishonest was true. He saw the other party take out a red folder and push it in front of him with a smile, and then introduced it to him. Mr. Singer, this is a cooperation agreement that Sotheby's has tailored for you. Take a look, and if you are satisfied, we will sign it. Then, 1 week after counting the goods, Sotheby's will organize a special gold art auction to auction your gold art at the highest price in exchange for a large profit. Belsina said nothing, but took the contract document and looked at it carefully. The other party was indeed squeezing his profits, and the amount of commission he collected was as high as 35%. If he followed this fee distribution plan, the previous gold cup, which was worth $30,000 and actually cost more than $40,000, would only bring him $32,000 after the auction, which was still good. If the other party manipulates the auction and lowers the price, the loss will be even greater. The commission and tax are as high as 35%. This is a harsh contract that can only be achieved in ordinary trusteeship business. He actually appeared in front of his big client. What did the other party think of him? He thought he was a fool and slaughtered him at will. Belsina frowned, put the folder on the table, and then said to West with a sneer, Mr. West, did you, Sotheby's auction house, make a mistake in the contract? This is a contract for ordinary entrusted auctions. It is also the most ordinary cooperation contract. You actually gave it to me. Are you the only auction company in Europe? Are you the only auction company in the world? The transaction was negotiated. There is nothing shameful about asking for a high price and paying it back on the spot. Seeing that the other party was dissatisfied, West said with a smile, Mr. Singer, you should understand the difficulties of Sotheby's. The number of auctions you have is too large. We have to organize a special auction. And we have to carry out large-scale publicity. The publicity costs account for a large part of it. You don't deny this, do you? I don't deny that there would be greater profits without publicity, but the contract you gave is not as outrageous as it is. Why don't you grab 35%? Although Belsina has never participated in the top auction special meetings organized by Sotheby's, he knows that the investment is huge. Not counting the publicity costs, it is to invite the top European nobles to participate in the auction. The expenses along the way, including accommodation, food, and travel, are all expensive. I don't deny that there are huge costs, but it's not as outrageous as you say. I can only accept 10% of the auction house's commission and tax fees. If it exceeds 10%, I will suffer a loss. This is the difference between large-scale transactions and small-scale transactions. If there is no difference, Sotheby's auction house will not be able to dominate the auction industry for so many years. Belsina smiled and knocked on the table before speaking slowly. Compared with the actual profits of your Sotheby's auction house, those expenses are just a drop in the bucket. My bottom line is 10%. If you agree, we will sign the contract. If you don't agree, I will find Christie's. Anyway, I have things and I don't have to worry about selling them. At worst, I can distribute these things to various places in the United States or Europe. I will make less profit, but I can't give part of the fat meat in my mouth to the wolf. This immediately caught the lifeline of West, the general manager of Sotheby's auction house. Sotheby's and Christie's are competitors and the two most famous auction houses in the world. But are you the only two auction houses in the world that auction gold antiques? Which country doesn't have an auction house? At worst, I will spend some effort on these things and distribute them all over the world. The profit will be less, but it can't be as exaggerated as the contract you gave. Aren't you guys trying to lower the price? Well, I would rather lose a little, and I will distribute them to see what you can do. Chapter 336, Press to 10%. Seeing Belsina's resolute attitude, West knew that today's matter would be difficult to deal with. The other party had already grasped his lifeline. They would rather lose part of their profits than let you eat meat. What can you do? If you don't give them a good contract, they will definitely take a large number of art and disappear immediately. You are not the only auction house in the world that is afraid of you. What kind of opponent is the most difficult to deal with? The most difficult opponent is the one who is not afraid of anything. This is a desperate strategy. Even the world's top auction house like Sotheby's can't afford to lose it. The profits of these golden artworks. This is money, a huge amount of money. Who can afford to lose it? So West had to take out the blue folder in his briefcase again, which contained 20% of the distribution share. But Belsina still shook his head and disagreed with such a distribution. 10% of the profit was his bottom line. If it exceeded this number, I would leave. After more than 2 hours of negotiations, it was always within the range of 15%. A tug-of-war was launched, and no agreement was reached in 2 hours. At this time, both parties were exhausted physically and mentally. Using the brain is much more laborious than using physical strength. What should I do when I'm tired? Belsina played a trick, stood up with a smile, patted West on the shoulder, and pulled him to the office window, looking at the dazzling array of gold artworks in the warehouse, and said with a smile, "We've been talking for so long, our mouths are dry. We should move around, otherwise our bodies will be stiff. Our blood circulation is blocked, so how about it?" Seeing this dazzling array of gold artworks in the room, aren't you shocked? Let's go down and take a look, so you can open your eyes. Belsina's suggestion was very good, and West also wanted to indirectly see if these gold artworks were as perfect as the information said. If there was something fishy, then Sotheby's auction house would suffer, and seeing is believing, so it doesn't hurt to take a look. Belsina took West downstairs and wandered around the dazzling array of gold artworks. After walking around for a few times, West noticed that each gold artwork had a label on it. Although the label was written in Hindi, the price on it surprised him. The prices written on it are basically the most authentic prices of these gold artworks. If they are well managed, the profits can be increased by 30%. However, the auctioning skills of large auction houses like Christie's and Sotheby's are not comparable to those of ordinary auction houses. The customers are also the richest people in the world, who are not short of money. If they are not royal relatives, they are all heirs of aristocratic families. The premium can even reach 50% to 80%. Being able to serve as the general manager of Sotheby's auction house, the number of treasures in his hands in a year is really countless. What kind of priceless treasures have not been seen? He has trained a pair of sharp eyes and can judge with just one look that the authenticity of this gold artwork reaches more than 99%. He will never make a mistake. These things are all treasures, all good things. Most of them are made of pure gold and covered with various gems. Although they are all Buddhist-related objects, it does not prevent these things from being gold antiques. They are quite valuable and are very popular among those rich people. Trouble. This is trouble. It turns out that this Belsina has done all the work in advance, and even the real price of these gold artworks has been estimated. And the estimate is almost right. What should I do now? There are countless small auction houses in front, like wolves, surrounding Sotheby's, and there will be Christie's in the future. Can Belsina go to Sotheby's instead of Christie's? There are wolves in front and tigers behind, plus Belsina, a client who is determined to hold on to 10% and won't let go. What should I do? While walking, West was thinking about his negotiation strategy. He walked a few times to stretch his muscles and bones, and then everyone returned to the office to continue the discussion. But Bell's personality is determined to hold on to 10% and won't change. Either you accept it, or we break up. Anyway, I'm auctioning everywhere. At most, I'll lose some profits, but I can't let you Sotheby's auction house succeed. There was no choice but to take out the yellow folder, which was also the last folder. It was printed with 10% commission fee. This is the bottom line that Sotheby's can accept, and it is also the number that Belsina wants most. The contract has been taken out, and both parties are very satisfied, so let's sign it. But when signing, West interrupted Belsina soft and hard, and increased the number of 1,300 gold artworks entrusted to Sotheby's auction to 1,800. Sotheby's has a big appetite and ate up 40% of the gold artworks that can be auctioned. 1,800 gold artworks are enough for the top auction house like Sotheby's to organize 10 special auctions. It can be completed in 2 months of operation. 1,800 gold artworks, although each one only earns 10% of the auction profit. Sotheby's also made a lot of money. Although the other party's soft and hard grinding made Bell's personality very awkward, he also put forward a condition, that is, to set the minimum price for each gold artwork. For example, the gold cup worth $40,000 was repriced to $50,000, and the $50,000 less Sotheby's auction house compensated for the lost profit. If there are more, then there are more. All the extra ones are mine. But if there are less, you, Sotheby's auction house, will have to compensate me. This condition is harsh enough, but you have to accept it. In the morning, a cooperation agreement was drawn up in the tug-of-war between the two sides, and both parties signed their names. Then West called his men with great excitement. Several large trucks rumbled over and loaded all the gold artworks into the trucks in batches and then transported them to London. When he left, he also left a VIP ticket for Sotheby's special auction house for Belsina, and a special box was reserved for the Belsina family, inviting Belsina to bring his family members to the special auction of gold artworks and watch their own profits on the spot. That would be a great feeling. The next afternoon was to meet with the general manager of Christie's, named Malone, a fat middle-aged man, who was also very difficult to deal with. The other party insisted on keeping the profit of 17%. When Belsina took out the 10% contract of Sotheby's auction house, the other party gave in. The dirty competition between Sotheby's and Christie's has been going on for hundreds of years. The two auction houses can be said to be mortal enemies. The other party actually ate up 1,800 gold artworks, so how could Christie's fall behind? It also ate up 1,800 gold artworks, and the conditions given were the same. The two top auction houses in the world ate up more than 80% of the gold artworks that could be auctioned. Then why not keep the remaining 20% in hand? Belsina would not be so stupid. Belsina would take the remaining 20% of the gold artworks to Switzerland, hand them over to the local auction house in Switzerland for auction, and keep the remaining little in hand, ready to give them as gifts to those who are worthy of flattery and useful to him. Chapter 337, Propaganda Campaign That Shocked Europe. Belsina was excited and exhausted to get the two major auction houses, Sotheby's and Christie's, done in one day. Talking to these old foxes, if you are not careful, there is a bottomless pit in front of you. If you fall into it, you can't climb out. He was exhausted. Fortunately, he finally got the two contracts. When the big truck of Christie's drove out of the warehouse, Belsina felt that he was about to collapse. Everyone said that it was easy to make a little money. He had to put on a smiling face and fight openly and secretly with these old foxes, just to increase his own profits. It was really not easy to make money. Fortunately, everything was done. Sotheby's and Christie's are two of the best auction houses in the world, and they have countless resources of big customers. Since the number of gold artworks this time is really huge, and they appear in a series, the two auction houses will concentrate all their publicity resources for publicity. First, do a good job of publicity to build up momentum, and then integrate your own customer resources and gather all the top customers. Then hold a special auction. What is a special auction? That is to auction these gold artworks as a series. Because the quantity is so large, even if a special auction is held, there are 12 auctions every day, one every hour, and it takes a week to complete the auction of all these gold artworks. The time is quite long. Even for the top auctions like Sotheby's and Christie's, it is impossible to complete the task without half a month. To complete the publicity work, any business needs to be preheated in advance and advertised well. Otherwise, who knows what you are selling? How much is the price? This is the importance of advertising. No one can ignore it. Fortunately, Belsina has transmitted the photos and information of these gold artworks in his hands to the two auction houses a week in advance. The two auction houses, with Belsina's permission, launched publicity work and have been promoting it for a week. Not to mention the UK, even the European continent has caused a storm. The ancient and mysterious India has such a large number of gold treasures related to Buddhist culture, which immediately attracted the interest of the wealthy nobles and wealthy families in the European continent. These nobles and wealthy families have been passed down for hundreds or even thousands of years, and they once held a large amount of land. Although the two world wars and the aristocratic reforms have greatly reduced the land in the hands of these nobles, the wealth accumulated over hundreds of years is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. These nobles usually look like gentlemen in suits and leather shoes, but if their family background is displayed, it can scare those so-called rich people on the Forbes list. These people are the real invisible rich. Although they don't have much money in their hands, their assets are extremely strong. All the money is hidden in the dark. If it is mobilized, it is not much worse than the assets of those top companies. They are not short of money. What do these people do with their money? In addition to enjoying life, they collect art. Because art is an absolute commodity that maintains value. Take oil paintings for example. A well-known oil painting has only room for growth and no room for decline. It is much more effective to put a large amount of money in the bank vault to gather dust. Even the most valuable currency in the world, the British pound, depreciates over time, but art will never depreciate. He only has room for advancement. It is better to keep the art around than to keep the money. When he is short of money, he can sell one or two pieces to exchange for a large amount of funds without attracting envy. This is a real hidden strategy. Although most of the European continent is now a republic or a federal government, only a few countries still retain the monarchy. The aristocratic system is still retained, but even France and Germany recognize the existence of the aristocracy and retain the title. Although the assets of these aristocrats have shrunk, they are still the top wealthy families in the upper class. What's more, there are so many top companies in Europe. Which of the executives of these big companies is not a millionaire? Which one does not own shares of the company? When they have more money and have nothing to do, they buy art and collect it in their own homes. So these are the top customers in the group of people who are least short of money. They can spend a lot of money to buy their favorite art. Where do those oil paintings that have been auctioned for tens of millions of pounds come from? They are the ones who hyped it up. Hype is the most common marketing method in the world. It works very well. The two auction houses had so many top resources in their hands, and with proper publicity, they caused a storm in Europe. The wealthy families with assets of more than 1 million received invitations personally sent by the two auction houses. A week later, the two auction houses held a special auction of gold artworks related to Buddhism from India at the same time, and invited them to the scene to support. A large set of more than 10 books of photos and introductions of gold artworks were also attached. With these real photos and introductions, it can be 100% confirmed that these gold artworks are antiques from hundreds of years ago. Moreover, the gold content is very high, and the artistic value and collection value are top notch. Although it is not as valuable as those Van Gogh or Da Vinci's oil paintings, it is not much worse. Real gold and silver have more collection value. Therefore, these wealthy nobles in the European continent began to invite their friends to their homes in groups of 3 or 5 to discuss strategies. Everyone formed a group to purchase activities. This special auction was really rare. Even Sotheby's and Christie's had not organized such a large-scale special auction for more than 3 years. It is worthwhile for them to spend a huge amount of money to buy it. If they miss this opportunity, they will miss it. Therefore, the entire European upper class was shaken. During this period of time, the topic of the European upper class was not which noble lady, or which noble had a lover. It was not the gossip news that someone's illegitimate child came to his father's house to ask for his share of the property, but the news about the special auction of gold artworks. Everyone was ready to raise funds to plunder, and then buy these gold artworks back, and put them in their own homes. It was also face saving when friends came. They introduced to everyone where this artwork came from, how many years of historical heritage it had, how unique and good the shape was, and this could show the heritage of the nobility. And those new business tycoons have a lot of money in their hands, but they always feel inferior to those children of aristocratic families with hundreds of years of history. That is the lack of historical heritage. Their family is an avo-rich, and has no historical heritage. You have only been rich for 50 years. How can you compete with those nobles who have been standing for hundreds of years? Any item in their home has hundreds of years of history. Can you compare with them? What if you can't compare? Let's think of shortcuts. What are shortcuts? Buying artworks with historical value and placing them at home is a very good shortcut. My family history is not as long as yours, but the things in my family have a much longer history than yours. Chapter 338. Clothes that you can wear even in 10 years. So the whole European continent was swept by a whirlwind of Indian gold artworks, and everyone was mobilized. This was a grand event, and anyone who missed it would regret it. Belsina didn't care about the disturbances from the outside world. The more excited and restless they were, the greater the benefits for him. He was selling things, and had no communication with these buyers. As long as they paid, it would be fine. Besides, the negotiations with the two old foxes had exhausted Bel's personality and body, and he planned to take a good rest for a few days to recover his condition. After seeing that all the trucks of Christie's had been transported, the remaining 20% of the gold artworks and those fine products that were not for sale were all packed and boxed. Then they were transported to Switzerland through the channels of the two auction houses, and hidden in a warehouse near a century-old bank that he had already chosen. When he arrived in Switzerland, these gold treasures would be transported to the underground vaults of these century-old banks for storage. Now all Belsina had to do was relax and steal a half day of leisure. A week later, it would be a bloody fight. How could he deal with the situation in front of him without energy? Now is the time to relax. After arranging the staff and handling the follow-up matters that afternoon, Belsina returned to the hotel. He took a shower and then lay on the bed and slept soundly. He didn't know how long he slept. He felt someone pushing his shoulder. He opened his eyes hazily and saw the smiling face of the fat girl Praji. Seeing that he opened his eyes, the little girl smiled and hugged his neck and said, "Brother Bell, it's just afternoon now. Why are you so lazy to fall on the bed like a pig and sleep? My sisters and I just came back from shopping. Take a look at our spoils. Isn't it very good?" During this period of time, I took a luxury cruise ship to travel around the world. No matter where the cruise ship goes, the desire of several women to go shopping has come to what kind of country. They have bought tons of clothes along the way, but several women are not satisfied. They come to the UK to go shopping again. I don't know why these women are so addicted to shopping. To be honest, these clothes bought by these women can actually keep fresh for a year if they change a set every day. These clothes will not be worn out in 10 years, so why buy them? Don't you know that these styles of clothes will be eliminated in a few years? By then, they will become old clothes. These spendthrift women will have a hard time. This is all money. This is the money that I worked hard to earn. You spendthrift women on buying clothes. You really deserve to be punished. But Belsina didn't dare to express any dissatisfaction in front of the tigresses in his family. Just spend it and earn more money. As long as the women are happy, his life will be better. Although he was woken up by the little girl, Bell didn't seem angry at all. He smiled and touched the little girl's head and said, "Oh, your fighting power really surprised me. I didn't expect that you have so many rich results in just a few hours. How is it? What did you buy? Tell Brother Bell." The little girl was very naive. She kept chattering in Belsina's arms about what she and her sisters had won. Most of them were clothes, cosmetics, and those not so expensive gold and silver jewelry. Although the funds spent exceeded $150,000. But this is the result of several women saving and saving again. Otherwise $500,000 would not be able to stop these women's fighting power. The things they bought back reached a weight of hundreds of kilograms, and each person bought more than 20 sets of clothes. Of course, more than 80% of the clothes purchased by these women are worn by themselves, but 20% are selected for their husband, Belsina. No matter which woman chooses, she will not forget her husband and consider Belsina's needs when buying things, which makes Belsina very moved. Seeing the little girl talking happily, she also became interested. After putting on her pajamas and going to the living room, she saw two women sorting out the spoils. As soon as they saw their husbands appear in the living room, the two women were in high spirits, but the fatigue of shopping made Belsina change into the clothes they liked. Most of them are suits, including casual suits, suits for formal occasions, tuxedos for dancing, and many other sets, all in different colors and styles. Seeing Belsina put on the clothes they carefully selected, the energetic look made several women admire him abnormally. They did not choose clothes randomly, but chose men's clothes to match their dresses. Seeing that Belsina looked very handsome in his clothes, they also changed into evening gowns to match them. Belsina was like a male model, accompanying several women to change clothes one by one, and then looking in the mirror. The feeling of the couple with very matching clothes was really warm. Although it cost a lot of money, he had deeply experienced the women's thoughts and love. It didn't matter if he spent money, as long as everyone was happy. Belsina, who had been a model for more than an hour, was tired and sweaty, and was finally let go by several women. After a lot of effort, he sat on the balcony in front of the living room, drinking tea and enjoying the scenery of the bay. He felt that the weather in the UK was really changeable, sometimes cloudy and sometimes sunny. Several women had just packed up the spoils they bought this afternoon, and then the family happily came to the restaurant downstairs for dinner. After dinner, Belsina sat on the sofa with several women to watch TV, and said to them with a smile, "Since we are in the UK, we must experience the most famous rural life in the UK. How do you feel? Anyway, we have time these few days to experience the unique rural life in the UK. The UK is a very strange country. Unlike other countries, the rich people in other countries like to live in big cities and prosperous metropolises. But the UK is just the opposite. The richer and more aristocratic people are, the more they run to the countryside. They are keen to run the country estates and dress up their own estates beautifully. Then, like a farmer, they live a life of herding cattle and sheep and farming, and they are happy to do so. Almost every small estate in the British countryside can be called a small one. The botanical garden has mountains and water, which is called a beautiful scenery. There are two major garden factions in the world. One is that the Japanese garden design is unique and very compact, and the other is that the British country garden is also unique and very distinctive in the world. Unlike those castles and manors in Europe, there is only a maze of trees in front, or some flat grasslands. What is the beauty of the British garden? There are all kinds of plants, and the distribution is very distinctive. Each manor has its own unique landscape structure that is dazzling and very distinctive. When several women heard Belle's proposal, they were also very excited. They began to chatter and discuss whether these British manners are really as good as everyone says, and whether they should transplant these British manner characteristics to the home in the Laga Valley. Chapter 339, Sheffield Manor 1. Seeing that the women were so interested, Belsina smiled and snapped his fingers. The human flesh rose Brooke, who was sitting not far away and eating a large plate of fruit, immediately appeared behind his master to listen to his master's instructions. Brooke, you also know that we have a week of free time, and I also plan to relax with our family. Since we have come to Plymouth, a century-old seaport, of course we can't miss the characteristic buildings of this city. We plan to go sightseeing tomorrow, but we are unfamiliar with the place, and we don't know where there are good views or good manners. You go find a local guide, but don't fool us like Turkey did. When you are a guide, you must be very careful. Do you understand? The last time, the traitorous guide was hurriedly found by the human flesh mule Brooke, who almost caused the family to suffer a great loss. Although he was not scolded by the master, the human flesh rose Brooke had learned his lesson, that he should not be anxious about anything, and he would make mistakes if he was anxious. Even if the master didn't tell him to, he wouldn't choose to find an unfamiliar guide in a hurry, so Brooke answered seriously. Don't worry, master, I will find such a guide as soon as possible. Tomorrow we can go to the port to have a look. The unique British naval Linoop. I heard that there is a warship from the sailing period docked at the port. I have to see it. Belsina also knew that it was not so easy to find a good and high quality guide. There was plenty of time. So tomorrow morning, we will visit the port and see what kind of scale the last battleship preserved in the sailing period is. What kind of construction is also unique. It would be very good to find a guide in the afternoon. At more than 9 o'clock that night, Belsina hugged Natasha and fell asleep. He woke up refreshed the next morning. After breakfast, he took the special car provided by the hotel to the port and visited the whole picture of the century-old military port. Don't say you really saw the battleship of the sailing period docked at the port. The cannons in the afternoon are very temperament. This is the most standard war weapon configuration during the British Empire, which lasted for 100 years. I thought this warship had 5 rows of cannons. It was a battleship-sized sailing warship, but I didn't expect that after the tour guide's introduction. I learned that its scale was at best just the scale of a cruiser, with 2 fewer rows of cannons than those real battleships. There are 5 rows of cannons on the upper, middle and lower decks, which means 7 decks. The number of cannons on one side exceeds 65, and there are a total of 130 iron pillars on both sides of the door. The caliber of the cannons is about 10 centimeters. Of course, the level of the shells 100 years ago was not very good. They were all solid or shrapnel shells. Whether it was the range or the destructive power, it was incomparable with the current cannons. I saw the appearance of this cruiser-sized sailing warship and then boarded the ship to visit the very luxurious captain's room. I saw the sophisticated instruments and various drawings needed for navigation 100 years ago. I also visited the kitchen storage room on the battleship, the battle deck below, and the warehouse, etc. And the whole morning passed like this. To be honest, in addition to being made of wood, this battleship is unique and completely restores all the configurations of the battleship hundreds of years ago. The most rare thing is that the battleship is in very good condition, and it can travel around the world without fear of falling apart. More than 1,000 photos were taken on the battleship, and more than dozens of films were consumed. When getting off the ship, Belsina even spent £200 very luxuriously to buy a 100:1 model of the battleship. This 100:1 model is purely handmade, and all the parts on the ship can be switched. It is a very good toy for adults. I plan to give it to my unborn son as a gift. After visiting the battleship, I was tired like a bear, but the unique naval cuisine in the harbor attracted everyone's attention. To be honest, naval cuisine sounds good, but what good things can you eat when you are drifting on the sea? All the ingredients are pickled with salt. It looks very delicious, just to increase the shelf life, but it is not the same when you eat it. Belsina even began to sympathize with the officers and soldiers who were drifting on the sea. They ate what garbage. This meal was so depressing. Fortunately, it was no problem to fill their stomachs. When they returned to the hotel in the afternoon, Brooke, who was quite efficient, came to him with a blonde and blue-eyed handsome man who was 1.9 meters tall. After the two sides introduced themselves, they knew that this was a top student of the local maritime academy, who served as a tour guide in his spare time. Brooke, who was exposed by the human flesh, hired him back with a high salary. He was handsome and very humorous. He was also very knowledgeable. He had aspired to be a Navy since he was a child, but because he was too tall, he was not suitable for activities in the narrow cabin. So the dream of the Navy could only be shattered, but it was no problem to become a captain after graduation. He was also a local of Plymouth and knew the city of Plymouth very well. What his team lacked was such a high quality guide. After the hiring fee of £10 per hour was agreed, the tour guide asked Bell what he wanted to see. A more targeted tour bus can save the least time. We had discussed it last night and planned to take a look at the local rural buildings and country manors in the UK and feel the leisurely life in the country manors. Upon learning the news, Jack frowned and thought about it. Then he smiled and said to Bell Senior with a sudden realization, "Mr. Singer, it's such a coincidence. I heard 2 days ago that Sheffield Manor is going to be open to tourists. You can stay for a week by paying £100,000. Sheffield Manor was the base camp of the Marquis and was very luxurious. It is the most classic and luxurious aristocratic manor in the entire Sheffield Manor Harbour City. I didn't expect it to be open to ordinary tourists. The price is so cheap. You can stay for a week for £100,000 and enjoy the aristocratic service. What do you think? A Marquis's aristocratic manor, living for a week, eating and playing, only costs £100,000. This is too exaggerated. It makes people feel very incredible. When did a high-level aristocrat like the Marquis open his manor to tourists for business? Is the Marquis so short of money? Impossible." Seeing the Belsina family open-mouthed in surprise, Guide Jack couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly as he explained to everyone, "Mr. Singer, please don't disbelieve me. I know the Sheffield Marquis family. Due to several generations of poor management, the family has now fallen into decline. Apart from the title of Marquis and the Sheffield Manor, there is only an empty shell left." Chapter 340, Sheffield Manor 2. Although the current British aristocracy does not monopolize the entire British upper class like 100 years ago, the dukes, marquesses, viscounts, and barons are the second-class high-ranking aristocrats. Even if they are in a state of decline, it is impossible to walk out of the castle that has been passed down in their family for hundreds of years, and the price for a week is only £100,000, which is too cheap. Of course, this £100,000 is cheap in Belsina's eyes, but he just spent £100,000 in 2000. That is a lot of money, except for those top wealthy families who would be willing to spend £100,000 to enjoy the treatment of Marquis for a week. Who has the financial resources to enjoy it? That's why Belsina was so surprised. How miserable must the Marquis family of Sheffield be? It takes so much courage to open the castle that has been passed down for hundreds of years, the base camp of their own family, to tourists. This is too miserable. Even worse than me, an Indian. Even Lena next to him felt incredible, covering her mouth with her hands, and said stupidly, "Oh my god, the Marquis's castle only costs £100,000 a week. You can have a week's visit at such a low price. Is this Marquis so short of money? He actually opened his family to tourists. What was he thinking?" As a local tour guide, Jack knew the local customs and practices best. Seeing the surprised faces of the Indian family in front of him, Jack felt his face burning. The empire that never set in the past has now become the empire of sunset. It is approaching dusk. The Indians who were just slaves in front of him before have become his masters now. A Marquis family is so poor that they opened their family base to tourists to earn the meager tour fees. This can no longer be described as miserable, but lonely. This family is completely lonely. What else is left except a Marquis title and a manor? The lives of people like me, a tour guide, are not as good as those of ordinary people. Seeing the incredible eyes of his employer's family, Jack, as a tour guide, needs to introduce the current situation of the British aristocracy to his employer. "Mr. Singh, Mrs. Singh, don't you know that this is all because of the damn noble inheritance tax? Otherwise, a top noble family like the Marquis would not have fallen into such a state. Speaking of inheritance tax, you may not know that it is because the First World War had defeated Britain in the last century. The British Empire was completely desolate at that time. What should it do if it has no money? It can only reach out to those wealthy nobles. So the British House of Commons, which is composed of civilians, stretched its claws to those wealthy noble families. A decree was promulgated, that is, the noble inheritance tax. The inheritance tax reached 80% or 90%. That is to say, after the death of the noble, his property will be inherited by the next generation of nobles. But if you want to inherit the title, you must pay 90% of your assets to pay inheritance tax. Otherwise your noble title will be deprived. If you can't pay, you, the son of the noble, will become a little white man, and you can't even keep your own family castle. Another reason for the desolation of these nobles is that the family castle that has been passed down for hundreds of years needs to be repaired. Hundreds of years of castles, if not repaired, would have collapsed long ago, but the cost of repairs is also a lot. These ancient castles that have been passed down for hundreds of years are all protected buildings and must be preserved in their original appearance. All the raw materials or techniques for repair are based on the original construction of the ancient castle. Later, they all need to be repaired by hand. The cost of repairing the castle each time ranges from tens of thousands of pounds to hundreds of thousands of pounds. Those nobles have been emptied of inheritance tax, so how can they afford to repair these castles? What to do if you have no money? If you don't repair the castle, it will be taken back by the government, so these nobles can only open their family base castle to tourists, let them visit, and charge ticket fees, plus various investments. They can only make ends meet in a year. The nobles are so lonely to this extent. What else can they have left besides a noble title? What else can be left? It's not as good as the life of an ordinary businessman. So the 21st century is a period when the nobles are truly lonely. The experience of the Marquis of Sheffield makes everyone feel sad. At the same time, I'm secretly glad that I live in India and still retain some privileges of the upper caste. In the UK, even if you are a noble with a baronial title, your life is not as good as that of ordinary people. This is equivalent to begging on the street with a noble golden rice bowl. But the reality is so cruel, you have to accept it, whether you like it or not. Who caused the trouble of inheritance tax? All the wealth accumulated over hundreds of years is summarized to pay inheritance tax. It's all cheap. No wonder the British House of Commons and the people are so conflicted between the nobles and ordinary people in the UK. This is simply extortion. This makes Belsina feel more interested in the Sheffield Marquisate. He began to think about the plan to buy this Marquisate. The maintenance cost of hundreds of thousands of pounds every year is not a big deal for the Singh family. Owning a Marquisate, with its base in the UK, it is also a place to stay when you bring your family to the UK. Now that the Sheffield Marquisate family has fallen to this extent, the request to buy the manor should not be rejected. So Belsina's interest in this manor increased a little bit. After lunch, the guide Jack led the whole family team and drove to the suburbs. Although Plymouth is a port city, the suburbs are very mountainous. Although the mountains are not high, they are also densely planted. The Sheffield Backstreet Manor is hidden in the mountains. While enjoying the surrounding scenery, the guide Jack introduced the specific situation of the Sheffield Manor to the family in detail. Sheffield Manor was built in 1824, and it has been almost 200 years now. It covers an area of more than 10,000 acres. Although it is in the mountains, the 3 surrounding hills are all the property of the Marquis family. There are many small and medium-sized wild animals living in the forest. It covers an area of more than 10,000 acres, which is not small in the UK. It is located in the deep mountains of the suburbs of Plymouth. But the price of 10,000 acres makes Belsina feel that once he buys the Earl's Manor, the huge price he spends is still another matter. He can only negotiate at that time. After driving into the suburbs, there are fewer and fewer buildings around, and some unique country estates begin to appear. These estates are large and small. The large area can exceed hundreds of acres, and the small area can also be dozens of acres. These are all country villas, where rich people live. Poor people simply cannot afford such large areas of real estate. After bypassing these estates, a large number of dense vegetation began to appear on both sides of the winding mountain road. Although they are all broadleaf forests, they are unique. From time to time, you can see a hare or a deer jumping out of the grass. The surrounding environment is a mess. Although there are no large predators, there are many small herbivores, enough for hunting. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 341, Sheffield Manor 3rd. As the altitude rises, the broad-leaved forest slowly turns into a coniferous forest, and the plank road neatly turns into a gravel road. After driving up a hillside, looking down, you can see a straight gravel road leading to a valley. At the entrance of the valley is a horizontal stone wall that is 3 meters high. In the middle is a large wooden door, on which there is also a standard of deer antlers, which Belsina knows. This deer antler symbol is the emblem of the Marquis of Sheffield family, which is quite unique. It seems that this family has a certain relationship with deer. The convoy came to the wooden gate and slowly stopped. Then the guide Jack got out of the car and knocked on the gate a few times. A small door on the left side creaked open from the inside, and an old man in a very neat suit appeared in front of him. The Marquis family is the Marquis family store. The gatekeepers are so neatly dressed. You can imagine what a prosperous scene it must have been when the Sheffield Manor was in its heyday. Although the old man is a gatekeeper, he is a gatekeeper of a noble Marquis family, and he has a lot of etiquette. He bowed first, shook hands with Jack, and asked Jack about his purpose. He was very happy to learn that a family from India planned to visit the Marquis family manor for a week and bring more than £100,000 of property income to the Marquis family manor. After the gate creaked open, the Singh family's convoy was invited to enter the Marquis manor. Outside was a bumpy gravel road. However, the main road of the Marquis manor was made of oval-shaped colorful cobblestones. The cost of this road was very expensive at that time. These pebbles are carefully selected top-grade pebbles. Not only are the surfaces smooth, but the colors are also colorful. Although it is not clear when sitting in the car, you can see these when passing by the cobblestone ground. The animals made of colorful pebbles are all deer. There are all kinds of terrestrial animals, and even sicker deer are seen. It seems that the Sheffield Manor family and deer have a story that is worth singing and crying. In addition to the very flat road made of cobblestones, French sycamore trees are planted on both sides of the road. Each tree has a diameter of more than 40 to 50 centimeters, tall and dense, and seems to be over 100 years old. Although the Marquis of Sheffield Manor has declined, the manor is well maintained, and there is no trace of weeds and branches on both sides of the road. Looking to both sides, you can see towering peaks on both sides, with dense pine forests on them, and a mountain can be vaguely seen at the end of the road in front. It is known that these 3 peaks form a terrain of 2 mountains and a ditch. The 3 peaks are also the property of the Sheffield family, and there are many wild animals living in the mountains. When the car came to the end of the stone road, it saw a pool fountain with a diameter of more than 10 meters. The most distinctive feature is the location of these fountains, which are all on the angels' breasts. A dozen fat little boy angels are very cute and unique in shape. But the fact is that there are some mottled marks on the angels' carving, which shows that the age of this fountain is not short. After bypassing the angel fountain with a diameter of 10 meters, what comes into view is a neatly trimmed lawn. The car was parked on the lawn. After getting off the car, the family couldn't help but open their mouths and sigh that the stone castle in front of them was so luxurious and spectacular. The castle was square with 4 floors above and below, but Belsina knew that there must be 2 floors of warehouses or wine cellars inside the 4-story castle, which was the standard configuration of European noble castles. The overall castle building was square, with towering spires on the 4 corners, and the entire castle was made of granite. It was covered with plants such as creepers and roses, and the castle was almost invisible. The color of the stone was all photocopied in the green plants. If you turn your head, you can see that there is an open area in front of the castle. The cobblestone road is lined with cultivated land full of plants on both sides. There is also an oval racecourse on the left, and a one-story bungalow built of stones on the right. These are warehouses or pens for chickens, ducks, and geese. The cultivated land was well organized, with various plants planted on it, and potatoes and wheat were also seen. Farther away on the hillside there is a large pasture with some sheep and cows living on it, and even 2 foals running around on the hill. Belsinger, who was observing the surrounding scenery, was pulled by Lena's hand. He turned around and saw the Marquis castle coming out. An old man in a suit and leather shoes with abnormal mental state came out. After the introduction, he learned that this was the butler of the Marquis family, named Raphael. The old butler was older than the old Jamal butler, but he was energetic and had the style of an aristocratic butler. After understanding the situation, the old butler smiled and shook hands with Belsinger and then said enthusiastically, "Welcome Mr. Singh and his wives to Sheffield Manor, to live for a week. I'm the Marquis butler Raphael. I sincerely serve the Singer family and will make the Singer family members feel at home. Look at the Marquis butler, he really knows the general situation and doesn't smile or talk, and the service is very thoughtful, which makes people find some faults." After the 2 sides greeted each other, the butler invited the Belsinger family into the castle. As soon as they entered the door, they saw that the bright hall was paved with marble and magnificent. What is unique is that there are more than 100 specimens of male elk heads hanging around the hall. It seems that the Sheffield family has an unclear relationship with deer. If they say they love deer, the cobblestones provided by the family and the roads are all covered with deer patterns. If he doesn't love deer, why are there so many specimens of deer heads hanging on the family? Is it possible that they love and hate these deer? After asking butler Raphael, I learned that the Sheffield Marquis, the first generation of the Sheffield Marquis family, used to be a hunter who made a living by hunting deer. He was so good at using bows and arrows, and then followed the British Empire Army to expand all over the world, and made great military achievements. Only then could he be promoted to a Marquis family that has been passed down from generation to generation. Although the castle is hidden under those creeper-like plants and looks small, after entering the central living room, the living room can accommodate hundreds of people and is decorated very luxuriously. Only then did I realize that the area of the castle is not small. This living room is a place for large banquets and dances. On one side is the kitchen, on the other side is a small dining room, and there is also a passage to the basement. Sure enough, there are 2 floors underground. One floor is a storage room, and the other floor is an underground wine cellar. The wine cellar stores hundreds of years of fine wines of the Marquis family, which can be used by guests who rent the castle for a week. The second floor is a small living room, plus 2 conference rooms, and a large study. The other small rooms are servant rooms where servants live. The third floor is 12 standard guest rooms, and the fourth floor is the 2 master rooms, and there is a baby room. Each room is decorated very luxuriously, with exquisite materials, all white oak furniture, and the same yellow and white palace color. Now that we have come to Sheffield Manor, of course, the servants brought by the Singh family can only live on the 2nd floor, but Belsing feels sorry for the servants around him. He insisted on letting his servants live in the guest rooms, and he lived in the master room on the 4th floor with his 3 wives. After packing up, the sky outside was getting dark, and the kitchen of the Marquis's castle began to get busy. Although the Marquis's family lived in the castle, they left the entire servant system in the castle to serve the guests, allowing the distinguished guests who spent a huge price of £100,000 to enjoy the noble treatment of the Marquis's family. Chapter 342, Sheffield Manor 4th. After assigning the rooms, Belsinger brought several women in the family and the servants with luggage behind him to the master bedroom. The furniture in the master bedroom is extremely luxurious and has a long history, but in order to rent out the manor, the Marquis family has cleaned the entire master bedroom. After changing the new sheets and quilts, you can move in completely. It is much more comfortable and cleaner than those hotels. Belsinger doesn't have to worry about opening the heavy solid wood wardrobe and putting clothes in. There are several women in the family who can do this task. After arranging the work of several women, Belsinger followed the old butler back and forth for an hour and a half. Finally, he had a clear view of the castle of the Marquis of Sheffield, especially the rich wines in the wine cellar, which made Belsinger feel drooling. A century-old noble family is a century-old noble family. The famous wines collected are produced from all over the world, and they are all products of well-known wineries. And the variety is extremely rich. In addition to the red wines produced by the major wineries with spider webs hanging on them, there are also brandy, champagne, sweet wine, whiskey, and even strong liquors such as vodka and tequila. The age of each bottle of wine collection will never be less than 50 years. Although these wines can be drunk by guests at will without limit, the accommodation fee of £100,000 is for 1 week. But how much wine can a person drink in a week? It seems that the price paid is not low. The ability of the Marquis family to make money is not low. Even if Belsina is so big, he can only drink 2 bottles in 1 meal. The wine produced by Lafite Winery, no matter how high its value is only thousands of pounds. How can £100,000 buy thousands of bottles of such fine wine? After running inside and outside for more than an hour, Belsina was also exhausted and sweating, sitting on the luxurious sofa in the central living room, tasting the unique coffee inherited by the Marquis family for hundreds of years. From time to time, admire the portraits of people hanging on the wall of the Marquis family castle. This is a habit of Europeans, who usually hang portraits of their ancestors in the most prominent position in their homes, indicating that the family has a long history of inheritance. After a while, Lina came down from upstairs. Although she was pot-bellied, her movements were very agile. Seeing Belsina sitting on the sofa drinking coffee, she came up with a smile, sat beside Belsina, held his big hand, and said with a smile, "Honey, what are you going to eat for dinner?" Without mentioning this, Lina even forgot the time. Seeing that the sky outside was slightly dark, there was not much time left before dinner. She smiled and straightened up, patting a copper bell on the coffee table. The decibel of the bell was very low, but it was heard very clearly in the empty castle. After 2 ding-ding-dings, Raphael, the old butler of the Marquis family, like a ghost, he floated to his side from somewhere, and bowed and asked, "Does Mr. Singh have any instructions?" This old guy's ability is better than Jamal, the butler of his family, but it's a pity that such an excellent British butler will never be responsible for an Indian like him. No matter how much money he paid, the other party would not pay attention to him. He had served the nobles for generations, and was a person of status. How could he serve an Indian upstart like you? Outstanding ability is one thing, but not being able to recruit is another. Although Belsina admired the ability of butler Raphael, he did not argue with him too much, and just asked with a smile, "Mr. Raphael, it's getting late. Should the kitchen prepare dinner? What kind of dishes should be prepared? Can you introduce them to our guests?" Butler Raphael smiled, and bowed and replied, "Yes, Mr. Singh, the kitchen has already started preparing dinner. The dinner menu is based on the way the Marquis family entertains guests. There are 12 dishes in total. The banquet that the Marquis family will bring out to entertain guests must be extraordinary, otherwise it would not reflect the status of the Marquis family. It is even more impossible to let his huge sum of £100,000 go to waste, so the level of each meal is extremely high. Belsina is also very curious about what the Marquis family should eat when entertaining guests, so he asked with a smile, "What are they?" The first dish was invented by the second generation Marquis 80 years ago. It is called Sheffield roasted deer ribs. The raw material is the deer ribs of 12-month-old Sikha deer. They are marinated with various spices and then roasted. They are fragrant and juicy. It is a rare famous dish. This dish is good. When Belsina heard the introduction of this dish, his saliva almost flowed. Sikha deer is the best among deer. Its meat is fresh and tender. Although it is not big, its nourishing and medicinal value is the greatest. Moreover, the Sikha deer is full of treasures, including antlers, deer blood, and meat, which are all rare treasures. Butler Raphael saw Belsina nodded with satisfaction when he heard the first dish, and said very proudly, "The second dish is called lemon perch, a small perch produced in the creek behind the mountain. After being marinated with various spices, adding lemon juice, and then wrapped in tin foil for grilling, the meat is delicious and fragrant, especially appetizing." The third dish was invented by the Marquis 70 years ago. It is said to be inspired by Chinese cuisine. It is called cherry sauce braised pork. The meat is taken from the best pork belly and then cut into pieces and marinated and then braised with the Marcos family's secret cherry sauce. The taste is sweet and most popular among female diners, and the meat is crispy and tender, and it won't make you fat. Braised pork and cherry juice are paired, and the sweet and sour taste is a very good dish to relieve greasiness. All the fat on the pork belly is broken down, and it won't make you fat, and is particularly fragrant. This dish is very suitable for women who are losing weight to eat. It seems that the Marcos family has put a lot of effort into this VIP banquet. These dishes are very good and meet their own wishes. Because Plymouth is a port city near the sea, seafood is indispensable. 3 of the 12 dishes are seafood dishes. 3 dishes are made with meat, and the other 2 dishes are parts of cicadea and aquatic products. One of the vegetable soups, which is mainly vegetable soup, is a long-lasting delicacy of the Marquis family for hundreds of years. It is almost a vegetable soup that the owners of the Marquis family must drink every day. There are all kinds of fresh vegetables and asparagus in it. After stewing for an hour and a half, it is particularly fragrant and appetizing. Butler Raphael is outstanding in ability. He reported the name of each dish, including the raw materials, preparation methods, taste, etc. of this dish. He explained it in detail, and it was simple and clear, which made the guests intoxicated. Since they had such a good banquet, of course, they couldn't miss the pairing of fine wine. Butler Raphael originally planned to find Belsina 15 minutes before the meal and ask what kind of wine Mr. Singer and his family wanted to drink. Go to the wine cellar to choose it in person, and now see Belsina asked in advance. Mr. Singh, I'm sure you are very satisfied with the 12 dishes for dinner, but I don't know what kind of wine you usually drink for dinner. The wine in the wine cellar can be used by the Singh family at will. Chapter 343, Sheffield Manor 5. After eating such a banquet that has been passed down for hundreds of years in the Marquis family, it would be a waste of food without good wine. Besides, Belsina is a well-known alcoholic. He can't enjoy wine without food and wine. This is a perfect match. Without anyone, this banquet that has been passed down for hundreds of years will lack color. When Belsina mentioned fine wine, his eyes lit up. When he checked the underground wine cellar of the Marquis family, Belsina was already drooling. Those are all collections that are more than 100 years old. Even an ordinary bottle of whiskey will cost more than £1,000. It is a kind of enjoyment to be able to enjoy such a long collection of wine every day, but Belsina is a standard Chinese in his soul. He believes that any food paired with Chinese liquor is the best embodiment of the value of food, and those foreign liquors are not as addictive as Chinese liquor. It also does not reflect the preciousness of food. So, he frowned and raised his head, looking at Butler Raphael and asked. When Butler Raphael visited the Marquis's underground wine cellar, he could see famous wines from all regions and countries. Why couldn't he see the fine wines produced in China? To be honest, I've gotten used to drinking Chinese liquor in India. I wonder if your family has any collections. Butler Raphael's eyes were shining. It seemed that this Indian knew the benefits of Chinese wine. He had great taste. Chinese liquor is very suitable for long-term collection. As time goes by, the older the collection, the more fragrant it becomes. The first generation of the Marquis was fascinated by Chinese liquor. He spent a huge amount of money to transport a whole ship of Chinese liquor from the Guangzhou port, opened in the Qing dynasty, and stored it in the deepest part of the underground wine cellar. Belsina only visited the front half of the underground wine cellar. Even the contemporary Marquis had never set foot in the back half. If the old butler hadn't mastered all the information about the entire family, he wouldn't have known that the family had collected so many Chinese liquors, and they were all century-old liquors. Although the British invented whiskey, a type of strong liquor, it is not good enough to be called a strong liquor when compared with Chinese liquor. Tasteful, knowledgeable, and ambitious, this is the result of the old butler's re-evaluation of Mr. Belsina. People spend £100,000 to stay in your Marquis family castle for a week, enjoying the treatment of aristocrats. All the collections of his family are open to Mr. Singer, not to mention the Chinese liquor that the Marcoses of the first generation have not paid much attention to since the first generation of Marcoses. The reason why the Marcoses of the Sheffield family did not pay attention to the collection of these Chinese liquors is that they don't know how to drink. They can't drink these Chinese liquors because they are too strong. Seeing the guests asking this, Butler Raphael smiled and said, I have to say that Mr. Singer is so lucky. Belsinger touched his chin with a smile and nodded in acknowledgement. My luck has always been good. How come I heard what Butler Raphael said? Did the Marquis family really collect Chinese liquor? The old butler nodded and said, Mr. Singer's right. The first generation of the Marquis of the Sheffield family is an admirer of Chinese liquor. At that time, a huge price was spent to transport a whole ship of liquor from China to store in the wine cellar, but Chinese liquor is too powerful for ordinary people to enjoy. So except for the first generation of the Marquis, few people in the Marquis family would touch these strong liquors that can be ignited at a touch. Aren't you talking nonsense? The most common Chinese liquor is 52 degrees. A bowl of wine is equivalent to half a bowl of alcohol. Isn't it ignited at a touch? If the liquor doesn't ignite at all, it means that it is mixed with water. Such liquor can be 100% identified as a counterfeit and inferior product. Whose liquor can be drunk? That will make you drunk. The speaker is unintentional, but the listener is intentional. 100 years ago, the Marquis brought a whole ship of liquor from China to store in the wine cellar. How much liquor is this? It has been almost 150 years since the first generation of the Marquisate. The liquor collected now has a history of at least 150 years. Liquor over 100 years old is priceless liquid gold in China. I didn't expect that this impoverished Marquisate family would collect it in the deepest part of the wine cellar like boiled water. Do you think he has no vision? But the artworks collected by the Marquisate family are all priceless liquid gold. He doesn't even know how to take them out to exchange for money in his family's wine cellar. He lives a tight life. Do you think the people of the Sheffield Marquisate family are stupid or treacherous? Belsinger was so excited that he almost jumped up from the sofa, but Belsinger was more careful and did not show too much excitement. Instead, he asked calmly, really? That's a pity. Because India is close to China, I went to China to buy machinery, so the local boss gave me some Chinese liquor. It tasted pretty good. I don't know what kind of liquor your family has collected. This happened hundreds of years ago. Even if the old butler had a good memory, it was impossible for him to remember all the names of the liquor forgotten in the wine cellar. Hearing the guest's question, Butler Raphael blushed and hesitated for a long time before saying, I'm sorry, Mr. Singh, the name of Chinese liquor is too convoluted, and I don't know what they mean. When I first took up the position of butler, I checked the wine cellar. The only name I remember about Chinese liquor seems to be a famous liquor produced by an ancient well water tribute to the emperor. What is this? How can this be connected? Producing a fine wine that is tributed to the emperor from an ancient well. Isn't this Gujinganjiu? It is indeed one of the oldest famous wine varieties in China, but it is not explained to such a point. The British are so imaginative. It is not the British's fault. The history and culture of the Chinese nation have been passed down for 5,000 years, which is incredible in other countries. Even the name of the liquor is explained. It is so convoluted that it is no wonder that people do not recognize the preciousness of Chinese liquor. Gujinganjiu is said to be a famous wine produced by ancient well water and offered to the emperor as a tribute. What does this have to do with ancient wells? Seeing that such a shrewd old butler of the Marquis family knew nothing about Chinese liquor, Belsinger knew that his chance had come and said with a smile, I have seen and drunk this kind of wine. It is called Gujinganjiu, right? Butler Raphael searched in his mind for a long time before he said excitedly, as if he had a flash of inspiration, Mr. Singer, you are right. The name of this liquor is Gujinganjiu. It only has 4 characters, but it is too troublesome to explain. In addition, the Marquis family rarely chooses to touch these liquors, so they have long been forgotten. If it weren't for my good memory, I would have forgotten the existence of these liquors. How could the taste of Gujinganjiu from hundreds of years ago be bad? Let's drink it tonight. So Belsinger smiled and nodded. Okay, good food goes well with good wine. If there is no Gujinganjiu, I really can't eat. Let's drink it tonight. Chapter 344, The Marquis's Private Goods. According to a qualified British butler, since the guest ordered this famous wine, the family would definitely choose to give it to the guest to taste as soon as possible. but Butler Raphael was embarrassed, like a shy girl, twisting and turning there. This made Belle feel very strange, and asked in confusion, "Why, Butler Raphael, didn't you say that the Marquis family brought it back, and a ship was not stored in the wine cellar? Since I ordered the wine, why don't I go to get it?" Butler Raphael has never encountered such an embarrassing thing in his decades of butler career. The British butler has lost all his face. But the guest asked, and he couldn't help but say it, so he said it in embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Mr. Singh, it's not that I don't want to go to the wine cellar with you to get the wine, but I don't know the Chinese characters, and I don't know which jar is marked as Gujinganjiu. The British are really rigid, and can't be flexible. The names of Chinese liquors are very distinctive. Gujinganjiu is obviously 4 characters. If you don't know Chinese characters, can't you count? Isn't the 4-character phrase Gujinganjiu?" But Belsina was not angry. He knew that his chance had come. He wanted to observe closely how many secrets were hidden in the string of liquor that the first generation Marquis brought back in the first half of the year. Was it worth his effort? So he waved his hand and said with a smile, "I thought it was something else. I know Chinese characters. After all, I have drunk Chinese liquor. Do you know how the name of the liquor is written? Then I will go to the underground cellar with you, and I will pick it myself, right?" This completely solved the dilemma of Butler Raphael. He was very happy to personally take a flashlight and accompany Belsina to the underground cellar. After opening the underground cellar, the heavy wooden door was turned on, and the lighting system built in the underground cellar decades ago immediately lit up. The light in the cellar was very dim. After all, no matter what kind of wine it was very sensitive to light. If the light was too strong, the fine wine would deteriorate. The temperature in the underground wine cellar is not high, making people feel very cool or even a little cold. When the eyes adapt to the light, all that comes into view are rows of wine racks, on which are placed bottled wines. These wines are placed in a very special way, with the begin facing up, and the corks soaked in red wine, which can prevent the dry air from the corks from entering the wine bottle and producing chemical reactions with the red wine. Why does the wine go bad? Therefore, when storing red wine, you must choose to put it with the begin facing up and the corks facing down, which is the safest way to put it. Each wine rack is stacked with famous wines produced by major wineries, and there is another one on each rack. The list is hung on the wooden rack, so that people who choose table wines can see it at a glance. There is a winery on each shelf, producing wines of various ages. For example, the wine produced by Lafite Winery is on a wine rack. Each row of red wine on the wine rack is densely packed with bottles produced in the same year. They are covered with various dust and spider webs and look dirty, but the value of each bottle of red wine is definitely not less than £500. Butler Raphael led the way with a flashlight, and Belsina followed behind, turning around in front of various tall wine racks. After walking more than 20 meters in, what came into view was the middle stage of the wine cellar. Belsina had never been here before. What was stacked was not wine racks, but boxes of unopened wine or brandy champagne. After walking for a full 30 meters, after passing these boxes of wine, he came to the deepest part of the wine cellar. What came into view were all large and small wine jars. The largest wine jar is called the wine sea. It is the largest type of wine jar, with a capacity of more than 500 kilograms. If you want to move this big wine sea, you can't do it without 7 or 8 strong men. Because of its large size, the wine sea is placed on the bottom layer, and the wine jars on it are all 100 kilograms each. The third layer is 50 gin, the fourth layer is 20 gin, and the top layer is 5 gin small jars. Each jar is attached with a vertical square-head paper with the name of the liquor and the year of production. Belsina has a dog's nose. He smelled carefully and found no smell of liquor around, which proved that the jars were sealed very well. There was no damage or smell for hundreds of years, which proved that the liquor in the jars had not deteriorated. Wow, what caught my eye were all large and small jars of wine, 30 meters wide and long, 50 meters high and 5 meters high. The bottom layer was filled with densely packed wines, without a single empty space. Belsina took a flashlight and carefully identified the many types of Chinese wines shipped from Guangzhou hundreds of years ago. including white wine, yellow wine and even famous medicinal wine. There were more than 4 types of white wine, including Fengjiu from Shaanxi, Zifengjiu from Shaanxi, Gujingangjiu, and the last one was unexpectedly Zuoqing. There are only 2 most famous rice wines, one is Nvahang and the other is Shiguagang. There are many types of medicinal wines, such as Jimoleo Hangmeo medicinal wine, lamb wine, etc. This is an exposition of Chinese liquor, and all the famous wines can be found here. Even if I can drink 2 catas of liquor, I will fall unconscious on the bed, and the women in the family can't drink liquor. It's even more impossible for the servants to come to the table to eat with me, so Belsina climbed up the hill formed by the wine jars, and got a 5-jin jar of Gujingangjiu. On the way back, he took 2 bottles of sweet wine produced in Canada 60 years ago for the women in the family. I planned to walk out of the wine cellar after taking the wine, but when I came to the door, I accidentally glanced at the stone on one side. A black piece was dug into the wall. What was inside? I couldn't see it. I shone the flashlight and saw that it was an independent small wine cellar enclosed by an iron fence. What was placed inside was not a standard wine bottle, but some wooden stakes hollowed out from a whole log. This made Belsina very curious. What was in these wooden stakes? Could it be wine? How could wine be placed in wooden stakes? Wouldn't it move? Wouldn't it evaporate? As the saying goes, curiosity kills the cat. Belsina was also very curious. He quickly grabbed the old butler who was about to walk out of the wine cellar. Pointing to the independent small wine cellar in front of him that was enclosed by an iron fence, he asked, "Butler Rafi, there is a small wine cellar inside the wine cellar. It is enclosed by an iron fence. It is full of wooden stakes. What is in it?" At this time, Butler Raphael was full of pride, and everyone could see it. The old guy smiled confidently at Belsina. "Mr. Singh has sharp eyes. That wine cellar is an independent small wine cellar. The wooden stakes enclosed by iron fences are actually pine stakes with a history of 500 years. Isn't this nonsense? Can't I see that it is a pine stake?" I asked what was inside. Seeing Belsina's impatience, the old butler smiled and said, "These wooden stakes contain a kind of peerless wine produced in the Norwegian BJ circle, called ice crystal nectar wine. Due to the destruction of the environment in recent years, the temperature in the Arctic has risen sharply, so the ice crystal nectar has become a rare product and is no longer produced." Chapter 345. Getting serious. Ice crystal nectar wine. How come I have never heard of this kind of wine in the world? Is it a sweet wine? After all, the ancestors of the Norwegians were Viking pirates. At that time, the Viking pirates were invincible in the oceans, and their favorite drink was a kind of honey wine. It is a sweet wine fermented from honey. Although it tastes sweet, the alcohol concentration is not low. But I have never heard of ice crystal nectar wine since I was a child, and it is out of print. From now on, there will be no such precious nectar wine in the world, which aroused Belsina's strong interest. Seeing Belsina's curious eyes, the old butler proudly took Belsina to the small wine cellar enclosed by iron fences. He carefully looked at the things in the small wine cellar with the flashlight in his hand, and the round pine stakes said proudly, "Did you see that, Mr. Singer? Even the Marquis family's collection from hundreds of years ago only had these 10 small wooden bottles of ice crystal nectar wine. The total weight does not exceed 100 kilograms, which is already the largest collection in the entire British Isles. Even the British royal family only has 3 kilograms of ice crystal nectar wine. The British royal family is the world's top royal family with hundreds of millions of wealth in their hands. The entire British Empire belongs to them, and the British royal family actually collected a small 3 kilograms of this ice crystal nectar wine. You can imagine how precious this wine must be. The more precious it is, the more legendary stories it has. Under Belsina's soft and hard persuasion, the old butler talked freely and introduced to Belsina what ice crystal nectar wine is. Ice crystal flowers are actually a kind of small white flowers that grow in the Arctic Circle plains in Nordic countries such as Norway and Sweden. What is strange is that ice crystal flowers have only 2 petals and grow in the short summer of the Arctic Circle. As natural destruction becomes more and more serious these days, the temperature of the sea water rises, causing the temperature in the Arctic to change suddenly. This small ice flower has been extinct for more than 40 years. No wonder there is no ice nectar wine in the world. The extinction of this flower has gradually led to the extinction of a stingless bee that feeds on this nectar, which is not much bigger than an ant. It is strange that ice nectar wine can be produced without the main nectar source and the stingless bees that can brew ice nectar. Without ice flowers and stingless bees, there is no way to brew ice nectar wine, so these ice nectar wines have become unique products. It is impossible to brew successfully again. Even if the ice flowers and stingless bees had not become extinct, the production of ice nectar would only be a precious 250 kilograms per year. Only 500 kilograms of nectar wine can be brewed. This is a local specialty that the Norwegian royal family is most proud of. Scorpion poop is unique in the world. It has become a gift from the Norwegian and Swedish royal families and is welcomed by nobles and royal families all over the world. This is the place where this kind of wine is produced, so the Norwegian and Swedish royal families store the most ice crystal nectar wine in the world, reaching 3 tons. Even with a weight of 3 tons, the royal families of the two countries regard ice crystal nectar wine as a treasure. Except for the birthdays of the emperors of the two countries every year, they will take out a little bit to hold a banquet to taste it. Even if these wines are taken out, the weight will never exceed 500 grams. Think about it, how precious such wine is. Even though it is so precious, the Marquis family actually stored 100 kilograms, which is 97 kilograms more than the British royal family with the longest heritage in the world. So how outrageous is the price of this ice crystal nectar wine? In the words of the extremely proud butler Raphael, the two main raw materials of ice crystal nectar wine have all become extinct. It is impossible to produce such top-grade nectar wine again. Its price cannot be measured by money. It is the most precious treasure of the Marquis family. Belsina raised another question. Why is the storage condition of this ice crystal nectar wine different from other wines? These precious honey wines are actually stored in stumps made of pine wood over 500 years old. After the old butler's explanation, Belsina finally understood. This kind of stingless bee that specializes in sucking ice crystal nectar has very harsh nesting conditions. It will only choose to dig and build nests on pine trees over 500 years old. Only pine wood over 500 years old can ensure that the ice crystal nectar will not deteriorate. The ice crystal nectar wine brewed from ice crystal nectar can only be stored in these wooden piles to prevent it from deteriorating. Seeing the proud expression of the old guy, it was as if he had won a 5 million prize, as if he was the butler of the British royal family. Just like a male peacock with its screen spread out. What do you have to be proud of? Now the Marquis of Sheffield is so poor that they have to make money by renting out their main business. They have fallen to such a state. What do you have to be proud of? It is not measured by money. It is just that the price is not given. I don't believe that there is anything in the world that money can't buy. Even if it can't be bought, it is because the price does not meet the other party's requirements. There is nothing in the world that money can't do, and there is nothing that money can't buy. This is the power of money. The Marquis family locked the iron door, and the wine inside cannot be provided to guests for tasting. Even if the guests pay £1 million, the other party will not sell 1 kilogram of such ice crystal nectar wine. Even if you are rich, you can't drink it. This made Belsina feel very angry and felt insulted. The other party didn't take him seriously. It seems that his plan should be put on the agenda. Back in the living room, Belsina's expression was very indifferent. He began to think about how to take down the base camp of the Marquis of Sheffield. Don't the women in the family want to buy a holiday estate? What is the difference between buying in continental Europe and buying in the UK? What's more, it was bought from the base camp of Marquis family, which was a manifestation of status and comfortable to live in. Of course, the most important thing was that Belsina took a fancy to the fine wines in the wine cellar, especially the Chinese liquor and ice crystal nectar wine, two peerless wines. At dinner, Belsina tasted the Gujinganjiu produced 100 years ago. The light yellow liquor tasted smooth and smooth. When the bottle was opened, the whole small restaurant was filled with the aroma of Chinese liquor, which made everyone fascinated. The dinner was a great pleasure for both the host and the guests. After breakfast at 10 o'clock the next day, butler Raphael personally went to the Marquis family's horse farm to select 3 very docile horses and several ordinary mounts. The main activity this morning was hunting within the Marquis family's sphere of influence. Now it is late autumn, when the animals are the fattest. Hunting has been popular among British nobles since ancient times. Every year, fox hunting is an entertainment activity that British nobles flock to. Belsinger was not a nobleman and could not participate in the noble fox hunting, but it did not prevent him from hunting 2 sick deer for dinner within the sphere of influence of the Marquis family. If it was in the past, Belsinger would definitely be very excited, but at this time Belsinger was very silent. When there were no people around, he called Brooke, the human flesh LUO, to his side and whispered, "Brooke, I don't care how much it costs you, how much money you spend. Get me all the information about the Marquis family of Sheffield within 3 days. Let's see what kind of economic situation the Marquis family has in order to rent out their family's base camp." Brooke, the human flesh mule, followed Belsinger and grew up around him. When Bell, who grew up around him, sticks his butt out, Brooke, the human flesh mule, knows what his master is going to do. Of course, he can hear the meaning behind Bell's words, so he sneered and said, "Don't worry, master, since you have made up your mind, then this Marquis family can't run away. I will get you what you want for reference. It is our family that can get this manor covering more than 10,000 acres. We are also nobles, ha ha ha." Chapter 346. The Marquis is in a lot of gambling debts. In the next few days, Belsinger and his family had a great time in Sheffield Castle. One day he went hunting, the next day he was a farmer, herding sheep and farming, and on the 3rd day he went to the mountain stream to fish for perch. There are 6 or 7 crisscrossing streams on the Sheffield mountain, where the Sheffield family lives. Although the streams are not wide, they are only about 10 meters. The stream water is only up to a person's knees, but there is a kind of small perch that is only 20 centimeters long living on the mountain. The meat is particularly tender and delicious, and it is not produced anywhere else, so it is also another local specialty of the Sheffield family. Although this perch is very small, it is extremely ferocious, and is a pure carnivore. After playing in the manor for 3 days without worries, Brooke, the human mule who had disappeared for 3 days, found Belsinger playing with several women in the room with a backpack. Brooke, the human bodyguard, had disappeared for 3 days. Now he appeared again. There must be something wrong. Several women also let Belsinger leave the room in a righteous way. Belsinger held a tissue in his hand, wiping the lipstick on his face, while talking quietly with the human mule Brooke. Then they came to the front garden of the castle, walking in the garden, and talking quietly without fear of being overheard. At this time, the human mule Brooke was excited, took out a thick folder from his bag, handed it to his master, and then introduced it. "Master, you said it was a coincidence, or arranged by Shiva, just when you were slaughtering the Japanese in the Monte Carlo casino. On the 5th floor of the same casino, our Marquis lost so much that his eyes turned green, and he owed a lot of gambling debts." Belsinger also felt that this matter was too coincidental. Could it be that fate was in the Monte Carlo casino? He made a lot of money on the 3rd floor, and the Marquis of Sheffield on the 5th floor lost so much that his eyes turned green, and he owed a lot of gambling debts. Could it be that Monaco is his blessed land? Opening the detailed information in his hand, Belsinger was more and more happy. The information contained the information of the current Marquis of Sheffield from childhood to adulthood. Since the father of the Marquis of Sheffield died young, the contemporary Marquis and I have basically experienced the same thing. Raphael, the old housekeeper, raised him up and was naughty since childhood. In addition, without the discipline of his parents, he has been infected with all kinds of bad habits. Although it is not as bad as drug abuse, gambling has indeed ruined the 32-year-old contemporary Marquis of Sheffield. Almost the entire Marquisate property was completely lost. This contemporary Marquis is not only a big fat sheep who loses every time he gambles, but also a playboy. He plays with women everywhere, and owes a lot of romantic debts. He has become a collective laughingstock of the upper aristocracy of the British Empire. When there is nothing to do, these ladies gather together and start laughing. Which woman is a Marquis of Sheffield entangled with? Which illegitimate child came to divide the family property? Even the Marquisate family, which has been passed down for hundreds of years, Cannot bear such a wasteful behavior. Just when I was fighting the Japanese in Monte Carlo, the Marquis lost his eyes on the 5th floor. Belsina and the Japanese were even more powerful when they faced the Marquis. He faced the Arab princes. Which of the Arab princes did not make their fortunes from oil? Which of them is not extremely wealthy? Gambling with $200 million is like gambling with $2. Can you compare? Gambling depends on momentum and one's own good fortune. If you compare your momentum with the opponent, you will lose. If you don't have as much money as the opponent, who will lose? You lost the last bit of the Marquis family, and the operating funds exceeded $15 million. All of the Marquis family's old bottom was emptied in an instant, and now they are hiding from debt in a private apartment in London. The last property of the Marquis family, which is also the last base camp, Sheffield Manor, chose to rent out for this reason. The first customer is me. You say this is a coincidence. It is simply God's will. This is Shiva's eyes opening to bless me. Although the funds spent on this stack of information in my hand exceeded £300,000, the information is too complete and contains everything. There is even the amount of money owed by the contemporary Marquis of Sheffield, as well as the names and information of the borrowers. After the contemporary Marquis lost the last $15 million of his family, he fled to a small apartment in London to hide from his debts. The amount of debt he owed reached $13 million, which means that only $2 million of the $15 million gambling money was his own, and the rest was all borrowed at high interest rates. What made Belsina frown the most was that there were more people who had their eyes on the Sheffield family manor. Among them, one creditor who owed $8 million borrowed money because he had his eyes on the Sheffield manor. He wanted to get the manor, but the value of this manor would definitely exceed $70 million, which was not something that $8 million could afford. So this creditor even sent people to watch over the Marquis of Sheffield to prevent him from borrowing money everywhere. If he is not allowed to advertise the Sheffield Manor in the cellar, no one will know about the sale of the Sheffield Manor, and no one will come to negotiate the sale of the manor worth $70 million. It is possible that he got it for the price of $8 million. The other party is really smart. It's a pity that the other party met an Indian who is not short of money, although the other party is the heir of an Earl family. It is quite clever to play tricks, but it is still useless when you meet someone with a lot of money. I don't believe that you can play better than the US dollar. It seems that the opportunity for me to make a move has come. This Sheffield Manor covering more than 10,000 acres is priced at $70 million, which is absolutely worth the money. Of course, the price of $70 million does not include the price of the underground wine cellar and family collections of the Sheffield Manor. If these things are added, you may not be able to get $150 million, but this manor has been regarded as his forbidden fruit by Belsina. No one can touch it. Whoever stretches out his claws will be chopped off. Belsina is a decisive Indian. Does he care about you so-called British aristocrats? You have fallen to such a low point. Why are you pretending to be a nobleman? But I don't have so much money in my hands. At most, I have to pay $70 million, and half of the deposit has already emptied my pocket. So I have no choice but to wait until the auction of those gold artworks is over and raise enough funds before I can start. But this does not prevent Belsina from arranging this action in advance. The Sheffield family, who are already strong on the outside but weak on the inside, have seen through your heart, liver, spleen, lungs and kidneys. Why are you pretending to be a big head in front of me? So Belsina put the information together and took the human Aluozibrick to wander around in the garden for more than 2 hours. He arranged the house buying action in detail. The first step is to find a reliable middleman and let this middleman come forward to buy Sheffield Manor. It is best that this middleman is British and has some status and fame in the upper class so that the other party can believe it. The second point is easy: to raise enough funds to buy the Sheffield Manor as a whole, including the wines in the wine cellar and those priceless artworks. I don't believe that you won't sell the manor worth $150 million. If I buy it for $127 million, who wouldn't be tempted by an extra $20 million? Especially for a poor Marquis who lost everything but his pants. Chapter 347. Auction begins. although the idea was good. When Belsina took over Sheffield Manor half a month later, the price he paid was not $170 million, but a full $200 million. The price he paid was really heavy, but Belsina was extremely satisfied with the benefits he got. He was happy when he had nothing to do, thinking that the price of $200 million was absolutely worth it. He stayed in Sheffield Manor for another 4 days and paid £100,000 for accommodation. With the warm farewell of the old butler Mr. Raphael, he left the Sheffield Manor with a history of more than 100 years. After returning to the hotel, he began to pack up and then got on the luxurious Rolls-Royce and drove on the British highway. He arrived in London at 4 o'clock in the afternoon of the same day. Because he entrusted to auction houses to auction gold artworks, it was not good to get too close to any auction house, so Belsina remained neutral. No auction house bothered them, and chose to live in the Hilton Hotel. After living in the Hilton Hotel and cleaning up the room, he took several women in the family out to eat at a very famous restaurant in London. After dinner, we cruised the Thames River in London at night. Sitting on a small cruise ship, we enjoyed the scenery on both sides of the river. It was a great feeling. Almost all the buildings and beautiful scenery on both sides of the river were in full view. Of course, the film of the camera was also a disaster. Then everyone should say that digital cameras were already produced in 2000, so why not use them? That's because no matter how good a digital camera is, it doesn't have the quality of photos taken with film. We toured until more than 10 o'clock in the evening, and then we returned to the hotel excitedly to take a shower and go to bed. At 7 o'clock in the afternoon of the next day, Belsina got up from the bed, had breakfast first, and then he brought the human Elio Zibrek to the headquarters of Sotheby's auction house alone. Prepare to participate in the gold art auction that started at 9 o'clock this morning. Lina Unatisha was responsible for accompanying him to the hospital for a prenatal checkup. There was only a short month before the baby was born. Preparations should have been made in advance. Belsina also discussed with Lina that he planned to have the baby born in the UK. Although the UK is the country with the best public medical care in the world, can those public hospitals still be visited? It doesn't fit the family's identity, so they can only go to a private hospital. Although the cost is high, the safety of mother and child is the most important. Private hospital beds are in short supply and can only be booked at a huge price. But for the safety of his wife and children, Singh accepted the cost of choosing the best hospital, the best ward, and the best doctor. When he came to the auction box reserved for him by Sotheby's auction house, he saw that it was really luxurious. The box was on the second floor. The front of the box was all floor-to-ceiling glass. You couldn't see any scene in the box from the lobby outside. It should be the reflection of the glass, but when you look at the lobby from inside, any situation is clear at a glance. There were leather sofas in the box, bidding machines used for computer speakers, small red wine refrigerators, and various snacks on the table. There was everything for eating, drinking, and playing, and the sound insulation of the box was very good. After entering, you couldn't hear any sound from outside, and you could only hear the sound from the lobby coming from the speakers. Sitting on the sofa, Belsina picked up the brochure of gold artworks next to him, and slowly flipped through it. The human mules Brooke and Almasha were eating and drinking. The two guys enjoyed the VIP treatment very much. As I have introduced to you before, both Sotheby's and Christie's have done enough publicity for the gold artworks provided by Belsina. It has aroused the nerves of all the rich people in Europe. Although the auction was held at 9 o'clock in the morning, it was different from the usual auction held at night. However, there were no less than 100 European nobles, royal families and wealthy families present, and more than 50 boxes on the second, third and fourth floors were all full. You can imagine how crazy people must be. How can they calm down when their nerves have been mobilized by gold artworks? There are more than 300 off-site bidders bidding. There may be 300 behind the podium of Sotheby's auction house. The staff responsible for answering the phone are busy. The two auctions adopt the same format, holding a special auction every hour, divided into two halves, each half an hour. More than 10 gold artworks will be auctioned in half an hour, which means that on average one gold artwork will be auctioned every 3 minutes. The efficiency is so high. Although the auction is very tight, these buyers who spend a lot of money have done their best. With their assistants and number plates, they have already discussed countermeasures to deal with this special auction. As the atmosphere on the scene became more and more heated, the countdown to the auction has begun. At 8:50, the auctioneer stepped onto the auction podium. Because this special auction has caused a sensation throughout Europe, the people who came to the scene are all the top wealthy families and nobles in Europe. Such a grand scene is of course necessary. Sotheby's #1 auctioneer, Adele, who is known as the Caesar in the auction world, will conduct the auction. This Adele, who is nearly 60 years old, is known as the Caesar in the auction world. His auction skills are so high that he can easily mobilize the emotions of the audience. Even if it is a giant auction house like Sotheby's, the salary level is tens of millions of dollars a year, so that this Caesar in the auctioneer industry can stay to work for him. The old man is energetic, with grey hair, but no wrinkles on his face, and he looks like a young man with white hair. In addition, his baby face is very funny, but don't be fooled by the kindness of this old man. He is also very good at selling skills. As soon as he came on stage, he knocked the auction hammer a few times, attracting everyone's attention, and then he grinned and said, "I believe that all the bidding singers have already obtained the information of Sotheby's auction house and know what the theme of this auction is. So without further ado, everyone open your eyes and look carefully. The first auction item is a set of gem wine utensils cast in 1732. After saying this, two beauties in bikinis came from the audience, carrying a wooden tray in their hands. After the red cloth was lifted, a set of gold gem wine utensils came into view, including a 20-centimeter high gold wine pot inlaid with gems, 6 wine glasses, and a tray made of pure gold. The shape of the wine pot is very oriental. It is only 5 centimeters wide and shaped like a pear. The long handle and long spout are inlaid with various red, green, yellow, and blue gems. There were also various pearls of different sizes, which were extremely luxurious. I didn't expect that the first item to be auctioned at Sotheby's would be a set, and they were extremely valuable. This first shot was so loud that it aroused the emotions of all the bidders. Seeing that everyone was very satisfied with this set of golden gemstone wine utensils, Mr. Adele smiled and said, "Everyone has the information in their hands, so I won't introduce the various data of this set of golden gemstone wine utensils in detail. The starting price is $2.5 million, and each bid increase must not be less than $100,000. Bidding starts now." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 348. We don't understand the world of rich people. The sound of Adele's auction hammer hitting the wooden board was clanging, and the whole scene could hear it clearly. Even Belsina in the box couldn't help but be moved, but seeing the reaction on the scene, Belsina's boiling heart was instantly cooled down, and even frozen into slag. I thought the scene was hot and silent, but seeing everyone staring at the set of gold wine utensils on the table was like being immobilized. There was no other reaction, which made Belsina's heart sink. He secretly said in his heart, "Is this set of such exquisite gold wine going to fail to sell? Why did everyone react like this?" No reaction was the biggest reaction, which made Belsina feel that his heart was lifted, but seeing Adele on the auction table still smiling, it gave Belsina a lot of confidence. This old guy is an auctioneer known as the Caesar of the auction world. It is impossible that this set of gold wine utensils will be ruined here. The old man is not nervous, so why should I, the seller, be nervous? No matter how much it sells, it will be mine. Thinking of this, the fist inside loosened again. Although he looked very calm on the surface, he was still uneasy in his heart. He didn't know why the scene was silent. But after a few seconds, Belsina was completely relieved. Everyone was obviously stunned when they saw this golden wine set, because seeing the picture in the brochure and seeing this set of golden and pearly gems on the scene were two different concepts. The visual impact was too great, and the things were too exquisite. No wonder everyone was so stupid now, because they were shocked. As time passed, 1 second, 2 seconds, and 3 seconds later, the whole scene banged, and the silent scene turned into a lively vegetable market. Everyone raised their cards. The number of people raising cards at the same time exceeded more than a dozen. Even the top auctioneer, who was known as the Caesar of the auction world, could not report all the people raising cards at the fastest speed. There were so many people raising cards that even the auctioneer could not report the number on each auction sign. But Adele, the master of the auction world known as the Caesar, really has two brushes. The old man chuckled and knocked the auction hammer in his hand vigorously. The sound of dang dang was like an alarm bell, spreading in everyone's ears. The scene instantly became quiet again. At this time, the auctioneer Adele smiled and said to everyone, "I'm very happy to see that everyone is so active in raising their placards. It seems that everyone likes this golden wine set very much, but there are more than a dozen people raising their placards each time, and I can't take care of everyone." Seeing the old man talking freely, Belsina's eyes couldn't help but flash, and a smile began to appear at the corners of his mouth. Knowing that the old man's methods would definitely not be so little, he started to set a trap next. Sure enough, after the old man finished speaking with a smile, he began to become very serious again, frowning, and said to the many auctioneers who were eager to try under the stage, "This is a special auction of Sotheby's, not a vegetable market. Sotheby's has priced this set of gold wine utensils a little too low, so I will temporarily increase the price from $2.5 million to $3.5 million. Now the bidding will begin." Good guy temporarily increased the price of this set of gold wine utensils, and only a giant like Sotheby's can do this. The scene was too chaotic. If you don't raise the price, more than a dozen people will raise their cards at the same time. Who will you sell it to? Even if the auctioneer is experienced, it is impossible to read out the numbers of more than a dozen number plates at the same time. Everyone present is a wealthy tycoon or aristocratic royal family members of various countries. These people have plenty of food and drink and plenty of money. The only thing they care about is their own face. Why use such a famous auctioneer like Mr. Adele to conduct the auction? It is because they take care of the emotions of the bidders present. Although the price was temporarily increased by $1 million, the atmosphere on the scene was still hot, and more than 7 or 8 people raised their cards to bid each time. The auctioneer couldn't name all the 7 or 8 number plates, but everyone present was a frequent visitor to major auctions and knew the auction process. He couldn't take care of the emotions of every bidder, so couldn't everyone just shout out their own prices? I don't know who started it first and shouted out the number of $3.7 million. Just like the prelude of a song, the bidders behind shouted out their prices one after another. These nobles, who usually look very elegant and graceful, behaved no differently from those aunties bargaining in the vegetable market at the auction. They were even worse than them. Everyone wanted good things. Who among these people lacked money? They just lacked things to put in their treasure chests. They could take them out and appreciate them at any time. What was money? In the eyes of these people, it was just a piece of waste paper. Only those expensive artworks were worth collecting and showing off to their friends. In less than 20 seconds, the starting price of $3.5 million immediately soared to $4.7 million. But people still kept raising their plates and scrambled to be the first. The price was rising almost every second, and the price index grew like a snowball because the seats on site and in the boxes were all full, and only a part of the people participated in the auction. This part of people were actually those nouveau riche who came to join in the fun. The real nobles and the real wealthy families have not made their moves yet. They would not have any intersection with these nouveau riche, nor would they shout out their prices loudly like these nouveau riche. Such uncivilized behavior appeared in such a high-end auction. As time went by, the price soared higher and higher, and the number of people participating in the auction became fewer and fewer. The price also soared from $4.7 million to $7.2 million. This is already the transaction price set by the auction house for this set of gold wine utensils. If it exceeds $7.2 million, it will be a multiple increase. Of course, the higher the price sold, the more the auction will earn. Belsina earned more. This is a business without capital. A set of gold wine utensils was auctioned for tens of millions of US dollars. Belsina made a fortune. Sure enough, when the first batch of bidders saw that the price of this set of gold wine utensils had reached tens of millions of US dollars, they began to call off. Although these people are now rich, money is money after all. Every penny is earned by their hard work. Unlike those nobles who inherited billions of wealth, they do nothing but lie on the pile of money and count money for fun. They were not born with a silver spoon in their mouths. They worked hard bit by bit to get what they have today. They feel bad to spend a penny. $10 million is only enough to buy a set of gold wine utensils. Isn't the price a bit too high? So these people began to retreat. They retreated, but those who really have no shortage of money began to appear. These are all wealthy families, royal families of various countries, and nobles who were born with a silver spoon in their mouths. They have plenty of assets for these people to squander. They don't know the hardship of making money, nor do they know the value of money. Ignorance is the most terrible. People don't know what money is and are afraid of you. Who can compare? Who can compare with these people who have no shortage of money? So the megaphone in the box slowly rang from the hall. Chapter 349. We don't understand the world of rich people. Belsina was the seller of this set of gold winner. The higher the price of this set of gold winner soared, the more Belsina earned. So Belsina would not participate in this auction, but just came to watch the fun. As the price soared, Belsina's nervousness began to explode. The half cup of whiskey with ice cubes in his hand began to tremble slowly, and the sound of glass and ice cubes colliding resounded throughout the box. The other two servants who were eating and drinking were also alarmed. The three of them stared at each other, watching the hot scene in the auction hall, and listening to the auctioneer, who was nervous as the hammer fell. As the auction progressed, Belsina was sweating with excitement, but a smile began to slowly appear at the corners of his mouth. Seeing the bidding for box number 6, when the red light came on, Belsina's heart began to rise, and those who were not short of money in the box finally made a move. The bidder was very generous, and the price was a full 12 million US dollars. This was almost double the base price set by the auction house for this set of gold wine utensils. Although he wanted to make a good start, the price that doubled also made Adele, the auctioneer, feel very excited. If the set of gold wine utensils was auctioned at the highest price, he would also get a share. Who wouldn't be tempted by real money? So the speed of the auction hammer falling was getting faster and faster. The old man showed his unparalleled auction skills, with witty remarks and a very fast speed. Every time he announced the price, the next price would appear immediately. As the price soared, bidders began to be eliminated one after another, and finally there was only one box and two other offside bidders left. The price also soared to a sky-high price of 14 million US dollars. It was agreed that it would be a 3-minute round, but the first shot was so loud. It was so loud. The bidding was so fierce. Almost all the top leaders of the auction were shocked. Everyone was very happy. However, the speed of the three buyers bidding did not slow down at all, and there was a trend of strengthening. Although it took time, if this auction was not completed, could you start another auction? How could you do that? There was no choice but to wait. In the end, the bidder in box 6 had the last laugh. This kind of auction bought this set of gold wine utensils produced in the 16th century for 16 million US dollars. The price of 16 million is 3 times the price given by the auction house. If the auction price of each gold artwork reached more than 3 times the auction house's price, Belsina's business with no capital was too glorious. The money came like a landslide and tsunami, which could not be stopped. Unfortunately, this set of gold wine utensils was the first one among the auction items. More than 1,000 pieces of gold artworks. It is impossible for each one to reach the exquisiteness of this set of gold wine utensils. When the auctioneer rang the final price of 16 million US dollars, the audience began to stand up and applaud. Although we don't know who is in box 6, in the world's top auction, Sotheby's, can the person with box 6 be easy to get? Who knows which country's royal aristocrat he is? It's almost certain that it's the territory of those Middle Eastern tycoons. Only these Arab tycoons will not take US dollars as money. As long as they like something, they will take it, no matter how much it costs. These Arab tycoons are the best group of fat sheep to make money. They are not short of money. What they produce in their land is black liquid gold. Can you compare? This set of exquisite gold wine utensils selected by the auction was very loud and deafening. It made everyone's ears buzz and deafen. This is a beautiful start. Belsina was also very excited. He drank the whiskey and the glass in one gulp. His tongue was numb from the spiciness, but he couldn't help laughing and kept asking the meat mule Brooke to pour wine for him. Don't look at it so intensely. In fact, the speed of the scene is very fast. The whole auction process did not exceed 5 minutes. The first golden wine bureau was sold at a high price of $16 million, and the second auction was followed. The sexy girl in a bikini brought up a tray. After removing the red cloth, she saw that it was actually a Buddhist conch made of gold, lying on the tray like a horn. There are also various auspicious blessing mantras and auspicious patterns carved on the Buddhist golden conch. The entire Buddhist golden conch weighs 2 kilograms. However, this Buddhist instrument is not made of pure gold, because pure gold is too soft, and it is impossible to maintain the shape of the conch, so the pure gold ratio can only reach 80%. However, this conch, which is the same shape as the real conch shell, is very exquisite and large. In addition, it is very rare to be preserved so well for such a long time. There is no damage at all, which immediately aroused everyone's interest. I didn't expect that Sotheby's auction house has continued its tradition. The items on such a top auction house are more exquisite than one. The auction price of this Buddhist golden conch instrument is as high as $2 million. Although this thing is not made of pure gold, the shape is very exquisite. So far, there is only one such thing in the world. Such a large Buddhist golden conch is of great collection value. Therefore, the atmosphere of the live auction became more and more heated. The starting price of $2 million was raised to $7.5 million within 2 minutes. This price is more than 3 times the reserve price of the auction, but there is still no sign of cooling down, especially the off-site bidders who lost the first victory. It seems that they have formed a tacit understanding. Everyone rushed to bid, and they must suppress the auctioneers in the on-site box. The auctioneers hidden behind the phone are not much lower in status than those in the on-site box. Although everyone does not know who is who, they are not short of money. The competition between the two sides is very fierce, and they are deadlocked. The 3-minute auction lasted for 7 minutes. This Buddhist golden conch belongs to the off-site bidder, and the final transaction price is $9 million. The auction price of just 2 items reached $25 million, in addition to paying the auction house 10% of the proceeds. After paying 20% tax, Belsina's profit can reach $20 million. This is a $20 million no-cost business. There is no cost at all. Is there any business that can be easier to do than this? Is there any profit that can be greater than this? No wonder others say that no-cost business is the easiest to do and has the greatest profit. As the auctioneer's hammer fell one by one, Belsina became more and more happy. He drank one glass of wine after another. Half an hour later, the first half of the auction ended. Belsina has already started to get drunk. Belsina does not have the physical strength and energy to participate in the next 10-hour auction. In addition, his heart really can't stand it. If he is so excited and ups and downs like a roller coaster, Belsina's heart will have problems, even if he is young. So Belsina walked out of the auction hall in a daze with 2 bodyguards who were still unsatisfied at home, and then took a taxi back to the hotel, lying on the bed and sleeping. This sleep is so sweet. Chapter 350, Times headline. Due to excessive excitement, he mistook the whiskey with ice cubes for plain water, and drank it one cup after another. When he returned to the hotel, Belsina was already unconscious and slept until the next morning, when he got up from the bed in a daze. He felt that his head was as painful as if it was split open by an axe. While knocking his head, he said to Natasha, who was woken up by him, with a wry smile, "Drinking will cause trouble. Drinking will cause trouble. This damn whiskey is really a strong liquor. Don't drink too much. Compared with Chinese liquor, it's really uncomfortable to get drunk." Seeing Belsina so uncomfortable, Natasha was very considerate and held Belsina's head, which was as painful as if it was split open, in her arms. Then she used her green jade fingers to slowly massage Belsina's temples. Belsina felt better and asked with a smile while enjoying Natasha's massage service, How was it yesterday when you accompanied Lina to the prenatal checkup? Are both the child and Lina very healthy? Natasha smiled and said, don't worry, Sister Lina and the child are very healthy. You will be a father in about a month. But the child's name has not been decided yet. Isn't it a bit too late? Belsina felt helpless about the difficult birth of his eldest son's name because he didn't know much about traditional Indian culture. He also wanted to give the child a Chinese name, but Belsina was a little embarrassed about the Indian name of his eldest son. This was also the reason why Lina and himself were upset. The child was about to be born, but the name had not been decided. Was he too incompetent as a father? But there were too many myths and celebrities in India. You can't name your eldest son casually, and Belsina was so annoyed that he couldn't open his mouth to speak. Isn't it just a name? Why not call him anything? Let's call him Tagore. He will be as cultured as Tagore in the future. He may not be a poet, but he can inherit the family business. Natasha was really amused and confused when she heard Belsina named his eldest son Tagore. This was too perfunctory, but the name Tagore is very meaningful. It is also a father's expectation for his child, hoping that the child will study hard and inherit the family business. Whether the name is good or bad, it has finally come out and finally spoken. If Lina, the mother, is not satisfied, she can change it. Anyway, Belsina, the father, was relieved, as if he had completed a task, and immediately relaxed his mind. Unexpectedly, this relaxation made the headache much better. Half an hour later, the couple came to the restaurant dressed neatly and saw Lina sitting in front of the dining table with a little girl eating a lot. The little girl ate the egg yolk on her face, and she didn't know it. She held a fork horizontally and picked up the plate to pick up the fried egg into her mouth. After greeting each other, the two men sat down at their seats. What Belsina was doing was putting reports from famous London media including the Times on the side. The headline on the front page immediately attracted Belsina's interest. When he saw the headline, Belsina's mouth couldn't help but rise. The headline on the front page of the Times reported a piece of news, that is, Sotheby's and Christie's auction houses actually joined hands rarely. A rare special auction was held yesterday, from morning to night, and 20 special auctions were held for a full 10 hours. The auctions were all some exquisite gold artworks related to Indian Buddhism. The grand occasion of the auction almost shocked the entire London media. The amount of auctions at Sotheby's auction house alone reached $350 million in one day. The number of gold artworks auctioned reached 150 pieces. Christie's auction's performance was better than Sotheby's auction house, and it actually completed an auction price of $430 million. The price of the two top auctions reached $800 million in one day. This can be said to be a grand occasion in the entire auction industry. Unexpectedly, it appeared in London. The Times reported in great detail on the two auctions, the lively scenes of each special session, and even attached photos of the exhibition site. The London Times is the most important global media organization in London, and its reports are not much worse than those of the Times. The more special topic, the very compact title is, "The holder of the mysterious Indian treasure has stirred up the order of the entire London auction market." I don't know where the reporter of the London Times found his information. Although he didn't clearly indicate his name and where he lived, he pointed out that he was an Indian and not very old. This mysterious treasure holder commissioned the two top auction houses to auction the gold artworks. Unexpectedly, it sold for more than $800 million in one day. The mysterious identity of Belsing, the holder of the gold artwork, immediately aroused the interest of many parties. However, the two auction houses did a very good job and did not disclose any information about the Singh family. Even the top media such as the London Times could not find any information about Belsing. All they knew was that he was an Indian, not very old, and a man. Unexpectedly, he made $800 million in one day. This made Belsing feel extremely happy. He smiled foolishly while reading the newspaper. Then he opened his mouth and mechanically ate the food that Lina fed him. From time to time, he also made a live broadcast to several women in the family to talk about what was said in the newspaper. These Indian women are great. They only care about their husbands, and their children never care about the disturbances in the outside world. Although the family's daily income has reached $800 million for these women, Family happiness and health are the most important, and the money is secondary. A warm breakfast made Belsing feel excited. According to today's schedule, he should have finished breakfast and cleaned up, and then went to Christie's auction site to watch the results of the second auction. But Belle changed her mind. If she went again, her heart would not be able to bear it. What if her mood was ups and downs, and she had a heart disease? How could she enjoy life? So she couldn't go to the Christie's auction. But how could Belsing be absent from such famous attractions as London's Big Ben and Buckingham Palace? In the morning, Belsing took his family to wander around the most important famous attractions in London, leaving behind the voices and smiles of family members. After lunch, Belsing personally accompanied Lina to the most famous private hospital in the suburbs of London. This famous private hospital, called St. Mary's Hospital, covers an area of more than 20 acres. It has very few beds, with only 120 beds in each department. The environment is very good, with mountains, water, and forests. Although each department has only 120 beds, the number of nurses has reached 360. In other words, each department has a bed, and the number of nurses assigned to it has reached 3. This is the benefit of a private hospital. The service is quite good, but the price of each bed is as high as £3,000 per day, which is not affordable for ordinary people. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.